listening to the Bomb Hole.
Bomb Hole Podcast.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody.
The Bomb Hole.
We're gonna slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on a big, nice burgundy snowboard.
On a big, nice burgundy snowboard, we are back in the booth. Stonie Budz, what's happening, my friend?
Not much, brother. Admiring your mug right now.
Thank you. Yeah, for the listeners, I have a tea mug that almost looks like urine in my. It's a bright yellow, but it's not about my mug today. We have two juggernaut photographers in the booth. We got Stonie Budz, and then to my left, we have Mr. Andy Wright in the booth. How we doing, Andy?
Doing great, and just got better.
Great answer. So you're originally from the state that we are currently sitting in, and you've migrated, but you're back.
I'm back, passing through town really quick. I wish it was for some snowboarding, but it's for another good reason. I just bought a new RV out in Kansas City, driving it home to Portland, Oregon, and couldn't do the drive without stopping through here.
Well, we
Hyped you came through. That's cool.
Absolutely, yeah, super hyped. Well, let's talk about this rig real quick, dude. This thing, explain to the listeners what it is.
All right, well, for the rig nerds, it's technically called a Tiger, made by Provan, and they basically what they do is they take a Ford or a Chevy 1-ton, and they put like what looks like a slide-in camper. They take the bed off the truck, they attach the slide-in, they make it pass through. All the amenities, of course, it's got a fridge, a stove, it's got an air conditioner, a bathroom, TV, solar on the roof. It's pretty much all self-contained, and hopefully it's going to keep me warm this winter. I'm planning on doing some posting up in the parking lots of some ski resorts, trying to get that first chair, which is getting more and more competitive every year, so thought this might be my way to get the edge.
I have a 2500 Chevy with a cab over camper on it myself. And, all the guys I go with, they all have Sprinter vans. So anytime I see somebody in a non-Sprinter van rig, I'm happy because, dude, these guys I get ride dirt bikes with, we're talking like 10 Sprinter vans. I feel like I'm at a damn like Amazon box truck delivery convention. You know what I mean?
They do drive those, huh?
Dude, trust me, it was really hard to stay away from those because at first, there's like some intrigue, but then you look at them and more, and they're, first of all, they're so expensive. It's like, forget about the price. I kind of have some respect for the guys that are building out their own. That's cool. They're not going in too deep. I know Alex Andrews has been posting a lot about his build out, and I thought that was pretty rad. But my main thing I didn't want a Sprinter van for is I just kind of think it's a waste of space. Most of them, I guess you can get slides and sleep side to side in them, but I'm 6'3", and I don't think I'm going to fit side to side, so I'd be sleeping long ways. So basically you're driving around a big van and you're just pulling a bed around, nowhere to really hang out, do your thing. The thing I like about the slide-in camper style is you sleep over the cab, and there's a lot of open space to hang in, and then it's built on a big like Super Duty F350. I know you like that diesel power.
Absolutely.
I will say,
Turbo.
Smoke and Jay's setup's kind of tight. I've hung some good times in there.
I was in there with you.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. We've actually. I think it was when we were up at Crystal for Super Park that one year. So we came up on some plant material.
Yes, we did.
While we were there.
I'll tell you what, though, in Cottonwood Heights, man, you drive around my neighborhood. There's a lot of like just people with Sprinter vans. It's like they're a little too popular, maybe, huh?
Yeah, I kind of just picture a lot of those people in those neighborhoods just having their like live, love, laugh, like little placards inside there, and just way too fancy.
Things,
I know, man. Yeah. It's a little too much, and then it's just, I don't know, maybe it was ruined by Instagram because it's just the
influencer rig.
The ultimate influencer rig is like that Sprinter van thing. So
maybe like a Mountains Please die cut sticker on the back.
Yeah,
Rick Ross said $500,000 in a Sprinter.
That's true. Yeah,
I'm down for that.
Well, his Sprinters, those rappers, their Sprinters are like luxury vehicles.
Yeah,
they're not. But let's.
Rick Ross ain't going camping.
He's not. He's not.
I mean, let's be honest. No one's going camping in those. That's just like that's glamping with a capital G. And I'm same way too. Mine's like decked out. But hey, whatever works for you, and if it's going to get you out to where you want to be, then that's cool.
Perfect.
Well, now that we're done making fun of sprinters, we have quite a bit of material to cover. And for the viewers that aren't unfamiliar with yourself, like Andy is one of the most prolific photographers in all of snowboarding, probably one of the most published, top 3. And before that, had a career in some graphic design. But before that, which is not very talked about, is the fact that you were a pro snowboarder. So let's fucking uncover that mystery.
Try to make it quick because I've definitely gone over this some other places. But so yeah, I grew up here in Salt Lake City, which, you know, obviously makes it pretty easy to go snowboarding. Like one of the best places in the world, just to be like 20, 30 minutes from the mountain. But I'll be honest, what got me into the whole deal was like, we just couldn't skate in the winter. So my parents were big skiers, and I was like, obviously anything they liked, I didn't like. I think it was pretty natural. So I was like very drawn to snowboarding. Initially, I remember there was this weird little mountaineer shop close to my house. I grew up kind of over right by Rail Garden, actually, not far away, off 4500. And there's a weird little mountaineer shop, and they used to have this Burton catalog in there. And you know, you're just a bored kid. You're just walking around checking out the shops, and every year I'd see this Burton catalog, and I would just study it. I'm like, what is this thing? I need to get into this. This thing looks amazing, this snowboarding thing. And so I got my first board, probably around 84. Bought it at a windsurfing shop. That was the whole like Hobie Cat era. And actually, first day I ever went snowboarding was miserable. We hiked up what is now Woodward Park City. It used to be called Parley Summit. Way too flat to hike up and ride down in powder. I think it's probably 85. Hiked up there with my buddy from high school, or actually we were junior high, Darren May. We both had boards. I think maybe we rented them the first time before we bought them just to check it out, see if we'd like it. And it was a miserable day, but there was just something there that made us want to come back and do it again. So yeah, next year we bought boards, and we were smart enough to hike up Alta early season on some steeper runs, and we're like, okay, this is what was missing. So yeah, anyway, my dream, I'm probably not the first one to say that snowboarding is a hell of a lot easier than skateboarding, and you can live out a lot of your skateboarding fantasies.
It's true.
And so like at first it was just like, oh, let's just go up there while we can't skate, and we'll snowboard around. It was Park West, which is now the Canyons, or maybe now it's even part of Park City, but they allowed snowboarding. So we used to ride there, and they had like a natural half pipe, and then I always had like a pass there. My parents, we did do skiing when I grew up, so they always got me a pass. But anyway, at some point it started to be more about the snowboarding than skateboarding. And, you'd see guys that were pro at the time, this is late 80s and stuff like that. And a lot of the stuff they were doing, it was weird, like dudes in like day glow suits and, some hard boots, some not, grabbing weird places. Obviously, it wasn't a lot of skate influence. And I was just like, I think I could do this. And so, chased it a little bit, ended up being sponsored by Nitro for a little while. I actually started on GNU and GNU and Nitro were under the same little distribution company. And then they kind of split off, and I went with Nitro, which was kind of big around these parts. They sponsored a lot of guys here. Guys who started Salty Peak Snowboard Shop were on Nitro. And then the guy that we grew up all idolizing, Jeff Davis, he was a rider on Nitro. He was on Burton for a while, and then he switched over to Nitro. So it was just kind of like huge Nitro scene here, huge connection. I ended up being on Nitro till probably like 96, 97. I still ride their boards to this day. Canute hooks me up. I love their boards. Good stuff.
You stuck riding them the whole time?
Yeah, I did. I really like their boards. I've tried some other ones over the years. I did some work for Wright over the years, and I rode their boards here and there, but then I just kind of gravitated back to Nitro, especially coming out with that when they came with the Quiver series. That was pretty rad. That was like the board I'd been waiting for. That I think it's called the Slash board, which is ironic. It was like a year before Giggy started Slash, and so Giggy sent me a Slash board first year they came out, and I was like, well, I'm already riding a Slash, so this is perfect.
Dude, we got to post one of these photos, but I've seen some photos of you were styly too, dude.
Yeah, let's post them. I'll send them to you, and we'll get them in the notes.
Maybe
for sure.
We'll pop one up here while we're talking about it, and we'll get them in the notes. But you were a styly dude.
Well, dude, so that was kind of like, you were limited. We didn't have parks, like, there was no jumps, other ones that, we weren't even really smart enough to build jumps. It was just kind of like side hits, things you would find, natural wind lips, stuff like that. But there was pipes, so... that was kind of like your best chance for airtime. Anytime you could just get in the air and just kind of grab, and it was like the tweak era, like the brushy era, put the knee on the board, the duck boy era, things like that. So in that regard, like we'd practice on the trampolines just to like work our tweaks out, hear the bindings creak, loosen up the top laces, maybe, click the ratchets down a couple to keep it loose. But like if your knee wasn't touching the board, you weren't tweaking.
Dude, and you're lanky, so you can get a nice tweak going.
Yeah, it's not anymore.
Not anymore, yeah. It's a shame how that goes away.
Dude, what's funny is like how the board just got so much farther away over the years.
Yeah.
I don't think my legs have grown.
Yeah, that's what's weird.
Dude, it's like there's not many grabs. I mean, if I even like brush it with the, I
Yeah.
gotta wear big gloves just to even like touch the thing.
I
Extra
feel
long
that.
gloves.
I mean,
feel
everyone,
that.
everyone comes on, Sean White so heavy for the boot grab. Dude, I'd kill to grab my boot.
I'll take boot, heel cup, anything
exactly.
at this point.
If I'm even in the neighborhood. Yeah.
Dude, so I got to talk about my experience seeing you ride, because when I worked at High Cascade, that was when I was younger, and you were just known as like big time photographer guy, right? And I remember seeing you do an Andrecht on which is a hand plant for the layman's, on like a little snow bump. You remember what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, Andy's still got it. I don't know how old he is, but he's ripping. And then I talked to Mikey Leblanc, and he was like, dude, Andy fucking rips. He was like, we built Sunshine Hip halfway through my career, and he came out of retirement and did a back nine.
All right.
Is that true?
Okay. I'm so glad this came up because I got to complain on this one. And God bless Mikey. He's always been, he brings this story up so much. That was a total accident. I was going for a Mickey, just a 5.
Yeah.
And it was just
You
gave
went
her.
for a 5 and ended up with a 9?
Dude, I was giving it my all. You know, like when you commit to the McTwist, well,
And if you spin a lot early.
yeah, you're just kind of like, I'm getting around. I'm
You're
not
like,
getting
oh
stuck.
shit, I
Yeah.
really got around.
Yeah, I'm not going to get stuck upside down.
Yeah.
And like, maybe, you're Mr. Switch McTwist, so those probably came easy to
I'm going
you.
to try to get those again this
Dude,
year.
I would love to see that.
I'm going to try.
So, yeah, total accident and nowhere near a land, but thank you, Mikey. You've always pumped me up good on that. And
That's sick.
I've let that one ride for probably a good 15 years.
Not saying it was an accident.
Yeah, just kind of going with
I
it.
tell you what,
for you,
I
dude.
would have never said. I would have never said
Yeah,
anything.
I'm
I
surprised
would've been like,
you
I
released
was.
this. If you
killing
want, we
it.
can pull that from this. Cause
I gotta be honest, dude. Gotta be honest on that one.
I want to know about. Did you know about Media or Media Magazine?
Yeah, that was what
right?
I wanted to get into
Oh, okay.
next. Yeah, let's talk about that transition from pro to graphic design stuff.
Yeah, so one of my other passions, kind of as we got into the snowboarding thing, I was going to college here. I got a job at Kinko's, which I think now is called FedEx Kinko's. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Is Kinko's
It
still
might
in the name?
just be FedEx. now.
Yeah, FedEx, whatever. The copy center. So I show up to work, and it was a great job because they're 24 hours a day, so I could go to school, I could still board and stuff. But they're like, oh yeah, your job is you're in charge of our computer system. They're like, you're going to school for computers. I was enrolled in a computer science degree. They're like, yeah, you're naturally our computer person. But this is all desktop publishing stuff. And so I'd always had an interest in making zines and things like that. And then when I got a job at Kinko's, we made a skate zine here. We called it the Zine of Zion. Might have to dig up a copy there.
I've never
For you
seen
guys.
that. That's
yeah.
cool.
And it had all our homies skating in it. And so I got that job at Kinko, and then I'm like, wow, you can lay all this stuff up on the computer and do it that way. That's really cool. And basically nobody there wanted to touch the things because it was early 90s. Computers were kind of ooh, those are for nerds. And so I already had the zine thing in my head. I actually had some friends that were had jobs working for designing little advertisements for the newspaper and stuff like that, and they'd always talk about it. I'm like, here's my opportunity. I'm just getting paid to sit here to learn this stuff. And so as the years went by, I'm like, I'm kind of here alone on the weekends, and no one's really watching, and I could whip out this zine, print the thing, and it could be maybe we should start our own little snowboarding magazine, because I took a lot of interest in I wanted to be a graphic designer. This is before I even had the snowboard or photography, and so I was just like, this is so fun to use this software. And it was kind of an era where graphic design is being reinvented. I don't know when you got into it. I know you did a bunch of design, but it was for the design people out there, it's kind of this Ray Gun era, David Carson. The fonts were crazy. This was really kind of an age of things were exploding. I used to get Mac Mall magazines in the mail a couple times a week, and I would just study them. I'm like, yeah, right? You would see the software.
All the new stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
Adobe Photoshop and all this stuff. So anyway, it just kind of put it together. We knew a lot of people taking photos around here. Obviously, a lot of good boarders were growing up here, so there's a lot of talent. I grew up, we were pretty tight with Rob Mathis, and he was obviously shooting in that era. He had photos to give us. made friends with some other photographers around town, and they were down to help out. And so we just started this magazine. We're like, screw it, let's make our own magazine. It'll be fun, and it'll kind of cover this area that we kind of felt. Another reason we did it was kind of wasn't really getting the attention we felt it deserved. It was just like early 90s before like the first wave of Cali had come. I don't think you were quite here yet, but it was all like the mags were like Colorado, Breckenridge, blah, 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 and, Bear. Those were like the spots. And so we're like, kind of think it's going off here. Let's just make it. There's talent here. You've had Tim in the booth. He was a big part of that. And obviously like JP, Jeremy were coming up in that era. Other writers, Brad Chevelle, roommate of mine at the time, he was big hot shot on Burton. He had got a lot of coverage. Anyway, there's no shortage of talent to put in there. And so it kind of like scratched a lot of itches, like the whole desire to do our scene right. And then also just to like have freedom to design this stuff, which was also like really fun.
So around this time, you guys are doing Medium Magazine, and it's Brad Chevelle.
Brad was the talent.
And then Jared Eberhardt.
Yeah. And we were designing together, me and Jared.
That's for what you guys went on to do after that. That was like a little nest egg of creativity, or what's going on here?
I guess, yeah, for sure. Like obviously Brad had a pretty good little pro career. He went on to work for MLY Snowboards for a minute before he went on to Cole Headwear and kind of started that from the ground up, and that thing blew up from his creation. And then Jared just went off the rails. He's amazing designer. He went to from when we were doing Medium, he on a whim went out to the U.S. Open in Vermont and interviewed at JDK, which was doing all the design work for Burton. They hired him, and he kind of like took over there. And then he went to Forum and took over there, and he was like kind of the all of the imagery behind the golden era of Forum, like the True Life. I think Resistance was a little before his time, but I think he came in right at True Life and just took over there and left his mark. And then he bounced. He went into making commercials, directing for a while, and now he's just like he's just designing houses.
Houses now?
Well, not designing, but renovating them himself.
Oh, sick.
Little hands-on work.
That's cool.
Well, that's kind of like, not to be too like, human optimization guy, but like you look at who you surround yourself with, right? You like, that's important, who you surround yourself. Like, Brad went on to start Cole. Jared ran Four Star or whatever Forum and all that.
Yeah.
And then you went on to be the head graphic designer for M3 Snowboards, which not everybody knows. And just that's insane.
Yeah, it was kind of funny how we ended up there, because at the time it was kind of like rival brands. Obviously Forum was the big brother, but M3 was kind of like following the same model. Let's make a sick team. Let's like have some kind of more like progressive graphics, and so it's funny, he ended up at Forum and I ended up at M3. But yeah, that was my in. And like before I ended up doing the design there, I'd kind of like caught the photography bug. So just for the timeline, as I was making the magazine, we did like 7 issues of Medium over the years. It was probably like 3 or 4 year run. We were trying to do them quarterly, but it ended up just being way too much work. But sometime along the way, I was just like, you know what, I should buy a camera, because I think I could do this. And I'm like always hanging out with these guys. It'll be a fun thing to learn. And then obviously I had a place to use my own photos. And it actually helped. One of, my hustle at the time was like, the magazine wasn't really paying money. It paid for itself. It was kind of a passion project, but it kind of proved that you could do design work. And so I was hustling design work for all these brands. I mean, this is golden era, like 90s, hundreds of brands. Couldn't be enough brands. So all these people are needing ads, they're needing catalogs, they're needing board graphics and stuff like that. And so I was already doing those, and then I was always sitting in my basement waiting around for FedEx or some guy who took a photo to send to me so I could finish the ad. And it was always late. It usually wasn't that great. It was okay, whatever. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start hustling this photo game, because it's like I'm already doing the ad and I've already got the guy's attention, and they're going to be like, yo, we need this ad. It's due tomorrow. It's always due tomorrow, no matter what. And they're like, do you know anyone that have photos of our rider? I'm like, actually, I kind of shot some myself. Do you want to see them? So boom, just doubled the.
You're selling photos and selling them
Yeah,
design work.
exactly. Like
One
that
stop shop.
Dude,
Yeah.
that was my in. That's how I kind of like. I wasn't a name. Like no one was gonna hire me and
Yeah.
send me out on a shoot. But you live here. The talent's here.
They needed the shots.
Yeah, you can go hustle. The talent's already here. I can just go up to Brighton or whatever, hike. I'm already with the kids, and there's like, I mean, it's to the point where like, do you know anyone that would ride for us? I'm like, oh, I know some people.
I know
just
some
even
guys.
yeah, maybe even lining it up on that end. I mean, it was. You remember that era?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was crazy.
You go to the trade show, it was just like so many new brands. I mean, this is kind of like right around the time that like Ride was going public, and it was just so much optimism that like, oh, snowboarding, the next big thing. So yeah, that was kind of my basic into photography. And so to get to M3, they kind of brought me on as a photographer first. And I was always like, this is great, guys. I like this, but who's doing the layouts and stuff? And they had a great team up in Portland. Some actually like friend of mine was doing it at the time, but it was through a design agency, and I was always with the riders, and the riders wanted more control. They want to kind of want to cut out the middleman, and they're like, what if you just did it? So I was like, oh, yes, this is the dream. I get to take all the photos. I get to hang with the team, get to lay out the ads in the summertime. So it all kind of came together. And honestly, if they wouldn't have gone out of business, I probably would have just kept doing that forever. But
Damn.
yeah, that was a high point. And like when that went down, I was like, it was like a leap of faith. I'm like, well, what's my next move? Should I try to hustle another brand? Should I be an art director? Or I'm like, man, this photography thing's kind of taking off. Cause
You
like,
could have went either way, huh?
yeah, easily could have gone either way. Cause I was getting kind of the same high off each, but I'm like, man, this photography thing, I get outside, I'm with the dudes, I'm riding, I'm not stuck in the basement waiting for someone else to send me a photo. And I was just like, I'm just going to take a leap of faith. I'm going all in photo wise. And like, it was kind of, just being the team photographer for M3, like I was out and those guys, whatever the team's like hooked up, to shoot with a movie project, usually Kingpin. And so I'm shooting all the other guys from Kingpin. That's building my resume. I'm selling photos. I'm selling them to the mags. I wasn't on staff yet. I'm selling ads of these guys on the side too, which is just crazy that, dude, the opportunities were endless back then. Like, M3's funding my travel to shoot their guys. And then I'm also shooting the other guys that are there and hustling that, which is travel's all paid for. So it worked out pretty well. And so
Mags were like this thick.
oh, dude, it was crazy.
They were.
It was insane. Yeah. And
like hundreds of pages.
yeah, and
Now
so
they're this thick.
it was just like, oh, this is, but I mean, it's weird because it did feel like kind of a leap. Like, okay, I always thought I was going to be this designer, but I think I'm going to try this photography thing. And then shortly after that, Transworld brought me on as staff. They'd actually been kind of asking me about it, and I'm like, it kind of conflicts because I'm working for M3, and they don't want like exclusivity on all their photos at just one mag. They want to spread them out, so I can't do both. And then when they were canned, I was like, all right, does that offer still stand? I'll do this.
Nice. Do you know what year that was?
I'd say it was 02, 03.
02, 03. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Dude,
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes M3 doesn't get the shine it
Yeah,
deserves
I
because,
agree.
like, I'm always sitting there talking about Forum 8, but when I think back to when I was a kid, the first pro model board that my parents bought me actually was an M3 sidewall series, Mikey Leblanc, which you probably designed.
I did.
It was called the Sidewall series?
It was
That
like
seems
this,
like a weird
Was it
name.
was it the guy with the ski mask on it?
yeah,
Yeah.
It's all the scratches on the
Yeah,
M.
yeah.
I
M3?
remember that board. That was
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah, but that's what
It's called the Discord series, I think. Yeah.
Sidewall
well, that's-
series.
Well, that was like their one sidewalk because they'd always done caps.
Yes,
so
exactly.
yeah, in that was like the
That's
cap
why you
era.
call it that. That
Yeah.
was the cap era. I'm glad that could be one of the worst trends in snowboarding.
Dude, that's really cool
Some
to hear.
people
That
like
was
those.
the board that like spoke to you.
I didn't want a Forum.
And
I
he
wanted an
designed
M3.
it.
Yeah, and so
yeah.
to me, I'm like, hey, like Forum is kind of the Beatles, rolling, and M3 is kind of like Rolling Stones a little bit. You know what I mean? Just a little more not edgy or whatever, but just not quite as like glam in the spotlight. But like definitely had a team that you could like latch onto and identify, kind of the underdogs, And so,
What year did they go under?
I would say it was
2002 or something?
yeah, I think so.
Something
Like
like
maybe
that.
it was like 03. I think
Around
it was
there.
last year.
Mikey on his episode said the boards were pieces of shit.
Oh, they're horrible. They were,
I still remember that first ad of his, and I mean, I just remember back in the day, man, they were sick. M3 was dope.
So one thing before we move on from this is fascinating for somebody because you guys are from an older era, and I never thought about the fact that I've thought about shooting film, right? You're like, yeah, you got to shoot the film, you get the rollback. I've never thought about the fact that the ad layouts were so analog, where you had to get sent a picture in the mail, and then you have to mock it up.
Well, and then you had to get it scanned.
Yeah, drum scans.
Yeah, you had to get it
They're
scanned.
expensive, too.
And you couldn't even, like, play with it to see if that was the shot. I mean, you kind of could because, like, you could get a slide scanner. I don't know if you had like one of those slide scanners.
Oh, to
back
do like
in the
a
day.
low quality
just to
scan
even
to
get
see.
a feel, just to
Yeah.
be like, show the client, like, well, hey, this is kind of what it's going to look like if you squint. Trust
Yeah.
me, it's sick.
Well, and we didn't want to pay for the drum scans either if
Yeah.
a brand was going to use it. So we had to send them the shit and they get the scan done. And
Yeah, and then some people would cut corners and do crappy scans.
then it made your stuff look like
Oh,
shit
it
in
was
the mag.
terrible,
If you didn't have
dude.
the right scan, it made you look bad.
Yeah, and so you were always pushing to get him to spend the good money because drum scan was $150
Yeah,
about,
when
right?
it first started, it was
Yeah.
150. I think at the end they were like 60.
Yeah. And so so that was even more challenging too. So you'd have to find ways to even like mock it up to kind of like even get a feel on your end as a designer, like how's this going to look? And then it's a couple more days for the drum scan. Obviously, it took a couple days for the FedEx to come.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it was a process, and you were like kind of on the line the whole time. It wasn't like, all right, it wasn't like a one and done. You were like, you got to see this thing through. It was a lot of work.
It was.
Now you can pretty much do it all on your phone.
Literally.
Straight up.
Yeah, you could design everything on your phone nowadays.
Are you still designing?
A tiny bit here and there, but not really.
Because that's interesting that we both kind of came at it from the design side,
Yeah.
right? Were you design first or
I
photo
remember
first?
once I was designing first.
Okay.
One time I asked you, you probably don't remember this. I was like, I don't know if I should shoot photos or get into design. And you were like, get in the design. You can always do that after you shoot photos. And I was like, sick, good call. And then
that's
I
good advice.
just dove into photos. You probably don't even remember that, but you gave me that advice once.
Probably at Bubba's bar once.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah, our bar in the basement.
Yeah.
Where I lived with Blue and Bobby and all sorts of good people.
Good times.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of listeners that are thinking about getting in the photog game. So let's get into like some advice and stuff like that. Because I know you said that you have some rules and guidelines that are simple that you like to follow and implement.
There's definitely, so rules is kind of a tricky part of anything creative, any creative process rules. So guidelines might be a little softer word to just say things that have kind of proven successful for us in the past to use. And this is all like stuff that's part of a course I teach every summer up at High Cascade in Oregon at on Mount Hood. It's a photo workshop, and we go through like a 6-day program up there. And it's pretty intense. It's classroom settings. We go out on the hill, we shoot in the day, we come back at night, we look at the photos, we critique them, and you can learn a lot in these 6 days if you had any interest in pursuing a career or just even getting better at photography. It's kind of what it's set up for. There's not a lot of that offered in school really anywhere. This is like the hands-on approach. I've had students who come there a lot of kids who come who are in college classes, and they can manage to get a credit for it somehow or another. It's kind of a summer thing where it's worth some college credit. But anyway, they'll tell me, they're like, I just learned basically a year's worth of photography in 6 days. And it's pretty insane to have that, like, you're up on Mount Hood and that you have access to talent that maybe you'll never have again. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing. You're there during, like, we usually do it in the middle of summer right after 4th of July. Used to be a session you were always up for. So
I remember the photo campers would always do like a night shoot.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So you have access to guys like, hot shots like Chris here. And there's always seems like Danny Davis has always been around the last couple of years. And it's just like, man, you want to get good at photography quick, get in front of some good talent.
Photo school doesn't really teach them that, right?
Well, it's hard because, like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
You build a mountain and bring in some
Yeah,
pro
you can't.
snowboarders?
There's no way to duplicate what you're doing up there.
Yeah, and a lot of like success in photography, which I imagine, or in snowboard photography, which I imagine translates into other realms too, is just like having the right talent in front of you. I mean, like, dude, if you're shooting models, like, it's so easy.
Yeah.
I can't take a bad picture. I mean, just a little, side note is like a lot of job me and Stone do is like, the brands, they want like lifestyle shots of the riders. And it's like, you didn't get into pro snowboarding to be a model. You want to be a snowboarder. So
Yeah.
you're stiff and awkward, and I didn't get into shooting models either, so I'm not like knowing how to put you at ease, stuff like that. So, we work through it. We make it work. It seems like they always want that candid shot because the pose shots are always
Some
awkward.
are stiffer than others too.
But I don't know if you've ever had experience working with a professional model. Have you?
Justin Benny count? Johnny Paxson. Johnny Paxson.
There you go. Boom. Air horn. Johnny Paxson.
Paxson was a professional model.
Lifey game on point.
Yeah, he was in some Mercedes ads, some maybe
Calvin Klein.
Yeah,
wasn't
Calvin
he?
Klein.
Oh, yeah.
All sorts of shit.
For sure. Well, anyway, so like I've had over the years, one thing's led to another. I've done some, snowboarding leads you in different places. And it's like, yeah, when you shoot these models, dude, I lifted the camera up to my face and I was like, all of a sudden the models, they just turn it on.
Yeah, they turn it on.
And you're just like, oh my God. It's like, that again.
Yeah, you look wonderful.
And so I guess the whole point here is what I'm trying to make is like, I think it's the same thing when you get in front of like a pro snowboarder. So like maybe you're like, you came from your mountain and you're shooting your guys that are the local rippers and they're probably pretty good, whatever. But you get up there and it's a legit jump, legit half pipe, legit rider. And
they turn it on.
And it's like, hey, secret's out. It's pretty easy, actually, guys.
Hey, this actually it kind of goes with a Patreon question we've got on this topic from Thomas Portet. Any advice for someone trying to learn snowboard photography who's lacking subjects to practice on? What do I do? Just shoot randos in the park?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because this is kind of, it's one of the main points of the whole workshop and the advice we give, because obviously this is a question get a lot, and everybody's story who's had success in photography is always the same. It's like, if you want to make it, dude, you got to move to the talent. It's like there's no way around it. You got to move to the mountains. And so, I was lucky enough to grow up here. The talent was around me. You chased it to Colorado.
I had to chase it. But there was some in Vermont, but I still had to chase it.
Yeah, you had something
the terrain,
to work with.
Yeah,
you had something to work with. But,
I wasn't even shooting there, though. I was just going to be where the rest of the talent was, I guess.
And, yeah, it's like you got to do that. You got to commit, and there's no guarantees. But I will guarantee you'll have a good time.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, even if you don't make it, like maybe you're fresh out of college, fresh out of high school. What are all your buddies doing back home? At least you went and chased a dream and you got to snowboard every day for a couple years, and maybe you're washing dishes at night and you're sleeping in the closet. But trust me,
we
it's
all
worth
did,
it.
Right?
Yeah. And if you really do want to make it or you want to get better, you got to take that leap. I mean, I guess you could like go on vacations and stuff and do that, but that's kind of the number one thing. And everybody that comes to our program, we have a lot of like guest photographers that come through and talk to our class and share their stories, and I'd still love to get you up there one day. I know we used to have budgets and typical story.
They'll come back.
I
think things are coming back
you're
around.
You're first on the list when they come back.
Thank you.
Dude. Yeah, I want you up there telling your story to the boys and girls. Actually, we get a lot of girls.
Yeah, I bet.
Too. Yeah, it's surprising. But anyway, so yeah, that's the first thing, dude. You got to move to the talent, and you got to like once you get there, you'll figure it out. Go riding. Who's the good dudes? You don't have to be a ripping rider to keep up and go to the park and kind of check out the talent. And trust me, those people want photos.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they want to be photoed.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got huge egos.
Yeah, and
right,
so
Chris?
and that's
true.
That's your those are your practice subjects, and hopefully, they're not at some level where they're just have high expectations where they're going to diss you if you miss it, because you're going to have to go through some growing pains. But it's good because they're also growing too in their careers, and for me, fortunately, like we just talked about Brad, he was a roommate of mine, Brad Schaffel, and he was a really good snowboarder. We grew up kind of riding together, and not grew up, but he moved here from Washington, and so our career arcs were similar. And I was just like, I was like, hey man, I'm going to get a camera. You want to go shoot? And he's like, oh yeah, for sure. And so like he was down. I got to practice on him. I got to practice on some other homies. I was lucky enough. Jason Brown from a snowboarder from here too, kind of under the radar. I consider one of the greatest to ever do it. Mm-hmm. Grew up skating with him, and that guy blew up quick on Burton, and he was always down to go shoot. And like that was my first photo ever published, so that's pretty lucky. But I got in, they are very understanding. We're homies anyway. If I'm missing the shot, and believe me, I missed some shots.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah, but anyway, so it's kind of like I hear you say. I've heard you say it several times on the show. One of my favorite quotes is, rising tide rises all boats. And it's like, as they come up, you come up. And as those dudes did, I was with them. And so like, from them, from there, I started shooting with Mikey. And then, obviously Jeremy, JP, and those guys eventually, Tim Osler came around to them. And so it's kind of like one thing leads to another, but you got to kind of take that first step and you got to put yourself in that situation. And there's no guarantees, just like anything in life. But like I said, it's kind of like a win-win, man. If you really love snowboarding, and you got to really love snowboarding to do this job, because it's like if you're in this for the money,
Yeah. Probably barking up the wrong tree.
100%. I mean, it was a couple years ago. It was a USA Today article. It was like top, 50 worst jobs. And it was like photographer 24, fast food worker 25.
Come on.
Straight
It
up.
was really in there?
Yeah.
Like
straight
that.
up. Yeah. And so, I mean,
Ouch.
and like, honestly, like, there's money to be made. Not as much as there used to be.
You got to hustle.
But dude, you didn't start doing it to make money, did you?
No.
Yeah. It was like for
Wasn't
me.
even a thought in my head.
Yeah, for me, I was
Yeah.
like, these guys are really good, and I'm kind of like not really on that level of where
Yeah.
they're going, and maybe this.
But I want to hang with them.
I want to hang. I want to
I
be
wanna
there. I want to
watch
be in the
this.
scene, the camaraderie, the boys. I want to be part of this, but like I don't really want to hit that jump, and I don't really have much to offer except for maybe throwing a big
Facts.
hot tub in there.
Yeah.
Or a bomb hole, potentially.
There you go.
I would leave a session riding with Marco and could hardly walk after. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? My stiff ass neck and hurt ankles and trying to keep up with him. And it's like, I need to just shoot photos here.
But dude, just being around it is
Yeah.
still like
It's infectious.
It is, and you're just like, and maybe you're like, I mean, I obviously had an interest in photography and capturing it. I remember photos always spoke to me. I feel like when I was growing up, and this is like, we were pre-video era. I mean, there's videos, but they were kind of like few and far between. It's not like now, but it was like photos is what you got you stoked. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I'd be so slow to go through the mag, just every photo, dissecting
Me
it,
too.
just absorbing it. So I was always like kind of drawn to it. And then dudes I would shoot with when I was trying to do it, especially like Rob Mathis, he helped me out a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And and I feel like, in some respects, thank you, Rob. I owe just about everything to
Give it an air
you.
horn.
But
But we got a butt here.
you owe a lot to us too, because you didn't know what the fuck you were doing. No, you could take a photo, but I don't think you'd ever
Snowboard-wise?
snowboard it. Yeah,
Oh.
exactly.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And so like, it's like we were his test subjects, and then like, obviously his career just took off.
Yeah.
And so we were like his dudes to practice on, and he killed it. Like he is a ripping skate photographer, ripping skater too. And so like, he kind of brought an element to it, an eye for skateboarding, which is what we liked too. So his angles were on point, and if he knew the trick, like him and like, I'm gonna go do a front side rock on that log. He knew what we were talking
Yeah.
about. He knew where to be, and
Which is
sorry about
crucial.
that.
People need
Yeah.
to learn that.
but no, I think I guess what I was trying to say is like,
He kind of showed you the ropes in
Yeah,
the
he-
beginning.
yeah, he showed us the ropes, and then it all just comes back around. And so we're happy to show other people the ropes. That's
Yeah.
kind of what the
That's
class
how
is
I
all
learned
about.
too. Like Kevin Zacher and Nate Christensen let me just shoot next to him.
Yeah. And that's so sick. And that
Yeah.
was with me with Whitey, dude.
Yeah.
He helped me out so much, and it was, and it was maybe less like technical questions at that point, but he was also filming movies. And at some point, like back in the day in the movie era, shooting 16, a lot of guys would do both.
Yeah, I remember Whitey had a rig with
Yeah.
both set up, and he'd be shooting sequences, filming on this one like bracket he set up.
Yeah, for sure. And he
So he
killed
was
it.
probably hyped when you started shooting photos.
Well,
with him.
yeah, I mean, he kind of like, I think he was starting to take his video projects a little
Yeah.
more serious then, and like realized it was hard to do both, and so he kind of like threw me some bones, and we'd go out, and there'd be some things like, I'm gonna shoot this. I'm like, oh, whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
If
like,
it was really sick.
dude, to his credit, and I don't know how many people like really know this about him, but and hopefully you get him in the booth someday. It'd be amazing. Ingemar's biggest backside air. And then, does that register in your generation?
Yeah, I know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, dude, the thing's plastered with media at the time, like all the, standards there, Fall Line Films, Mac Dog, everyone's got someone shooting. Whitey's there taking photos for Blunt and filming it at the same time.
Wow.
Nails the cover
Well, that was
And-
his cover.
and the shot in the video. And there was this filmer at the time who was there. I think Mac Dog had sent him there, Todd Hazeltine,
I remember him.
and missed shot.
And Whitey's there with both.
Whitey nailed
cover
both.
Video.
Hazeltine rolls up. Dude, I'll give you $1,000 for that shot right now.
For real?
Yeah.
And he kept it or what?
I told him to get lost.
Yeah, that's so sick.
That's incredible. Well, I want to.
That's sick that was his cover. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
And he developed it in my darkroom.
Really?
He had a darkroom in my house, in my basement, and he left an extra copy behind when he was processing it. It's the photo that went to do the cover of Blunt for that. So I still have it to this day.
That's a cool thing to hang on to right there.
I want to just highlight something that I heard just to break down what you said that's important for people to hear. And what I got from that, what I gathered, is that, a lot of times you can be the best in the world at any type of craft. You can be the best snowboarder in the world. You can be the best photographer in the world. But it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And going back to that, like a lot of your opportunities just came from who you know and being, and you too, Budz, both you, like being immersed in the scene. And that's great advice, I think, for people. It's like, just get out there and get immersed in the scene.
Yeah,
and,
go
and
to a mountain town.
Yeah, you got to
figure
do
it out.
that.
And
for
live
sure.
that life, and then you'll figure it out.
Yeah, and maybe it will happen and maybe it won't. But like,
Either way, you'll have fun.
but I mean, I think what we were talked about in the Patreon questions was, you know, like advice, and it was like, you know, luck favors the prepared. So if you want to put yourself in all these situations, you know, be prepared to make the best of it, make it happen. And a little to your point, which I hear you bring up stuff like this on the podcast in the past, it's like you can have all the natural talent in the world, but man, the guys that win in the end are the guys that put in the work. And so you put in the work, and you dedicate yourself to this. And I think it's true with anything. It's gonna, you know, it can pay off. And that's
Like any facet of life, right?
yeah, exactly. But especially in the, you know, photography side, there's a lot you can improve your craft, and you can but like in the end, I don't know how you felt about your early days when you revisit some of your early, dude, I'm looking at my stuff and I'm like, I was just a guy there with the camera that was smart enough to figure out how to expose it, get it in focus, and I had enough money to buy film and processing.
Yeah.
There's really not
And then the
much.
second you got connected to a mag, they would send you film, and you were hyped.
But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is like, it wasn't very special. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily had a vision here and there. You know what I mean? Like there was things I wanted, but it was like a lot of it, and was just like, all right, it was a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, for
Getting
sure.
in, and a lot of it just had to be like, because dude, film, especially slide film, is kind of intimidating, and like,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, so if I buy this camera and this lens and this roll of film, then I can go hang out on the shoot, and I could probably sell a couple of these ads if I get lucky.
Yeah.
And
And
it-
it's like $7 a roll and another $6 a roll to process. And
And it wasn't just about the money, obviously,
Yeah.
but it was just kind of a way to like keep the lifestyle going.
for sure.
Because I think
When equipment wasn't that cheap.
it's kind of lifestyle first. Now,
For sure.
And I was probably in denial at the time, like, I'm a photographer, take me serious. But looking back, and you know, and it's funny because my wife didn't really grow up around this. She snowboards a little bit, but she points it out, and she's like, you're a snowboarder first. You just do this so you can go snowboarding.
She calls it
I'm
how
like, what are
she
you
sees
talking
it.
about? I'm an artist.
I'm an artist.
But I'm like, especially in the last couple of years, I'm just like, I got another angle, babe. I think I can go boarding again this year.
I
These
always
guys wanna
knew
hire me.
I was lifestyle first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And whatever. I love photography. Don't get me wrong. And it is
My
my
love
passion.
of it came from snowboarding. though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Snowboarder first, photographer second, and it's definitely opened my eyes to other parts of, like, you know, photography as a whole. But like, I'm not pursuing commercially other things. You know, I don't think my heart's in it, and I think that like to have success. Again, coming back to if you want to be a like a snowboarding photographer for a living, you got to really be into snowboarding. This isn't like, you know, I said it's not a money making venture by no means. It can be.
Kind of used to be.
It was, but isn't
Hopefully
why
that comes back.
It wasn't why we got into it.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like, dude, it's cold out there, and it's like there's.
with you on some fucked up.
But I mean,
Quebec
like
shoes.
when your heart's not in it, you get cold.
Yes.
But when you're
you get
stoked,
extra cold.
but when you're stoked,
That's so true.
yeah, no cold can penetrate you when
Yeah.
you're in the zone, and that's like it probably has a lot to do with like, you know, similar things you talk about, like getting clip highs.
Mm-hmm.
We get clip highs too, you know. And I'm a fan of snowboarding, and I know you are too. And then when
Yeah.
I'm seeing shit go down, and I was lucky enough to move through my career and be witness to some heavy things, first tries, and it's like, dude, I couldn't even sleep at night when we go back to the hotel.
So true.
I'm just like, I can't believe that just happened. And I got to shoot it, and I got to just see it. God, I hope it came out, because I'm not going to see this film for 2 weeks.
And it's so crazy how it could be -20 and you're so warm running around
So
getting
warm.
that shot.
And you ever notice the minute this shoot stops,
you're
freeze.
freezing almost
Yeah.
to the point
Like-
where your hands are going to fall
Yeah,
off.
you're like, all right, we're done. Break down the lights. I'm like, oh,
I can't break down the
start the van,
lights.
start the van.
Your guys' cameras, like when you pick them up, they're like,
Dude, I don't wear
ice
gloves,
blocks. They're
dude.
so fucking cold.
I don't know how you do that.
I don't know what it is.
You're a psycho. I have
Yeah.
to wear gloves, but
I think my hands are starting to get stiff from it, though. I got to maybe start wearing gloves.
Well,
I don't wear gloves, ever.
A little arthritis from shooting all those bangers.
Think
Doug.
so, dude.
dude,
They're cold.
it's funny. Have you ever actually gotten a sore trigger finger?
Dude, I've gotten the numb trigger finger where it's so cold you can't even tell you're shooting the photo.
Dude, I've gotten carpal tunnel.
Really? In your finger?
Yes, straight up.
Heavy week of crew hopping, you're just fucking
Mad crew hopping. And I remember,
crew to crew to crew to crew. And
I was
finger.
like, what is wrong with my finger? It fucking aches. And you know what? It might have been from the phone. Maybe it was too much scrolling around. Could have been like a weird reach, but I was like, this thing's
You
just
really
throbbing.
had carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
Bro.
Well, I don't know. It wasn't diagnosed, but I remember one year when it was acting up and I think I flew up to AK to
My
meet up with.
finger's acting up.
I can't take this shit, dude. I can't take this shit, dude.
I'm telling you.
No, but straight up, as a snowboarder, right? Like I've got like 10 concussions over
Exactly.
here, and
I know.
you're sitting there, you're like, dude, I have carpal tunnel in my finger.
It hurt. Dude, try shooting without. You know how on it you have to be with your trigger? Like your finger.
Dude, for real though.
It's like it's
You
a
want us to
lifeline.
get those shots,
you can't
dude.
switch fingers. And shooting switch, what do you it's like
Yeah, you can't
it's
switch
key,
fingers,
buddy.
dude.
And so I remember I showed
can't
up
take
on a
this
shoot
shit.
and
I
I asked,
can't even switch eyeballs, dude. You got your one eyeball, your one finger. That's all
oh
we got
yeah,
out
eyeball,
there.
forget that. Yeah, and I think I showed up on a shoot. I was going to AK and Ollie was there, Ollie Gagnon, and I didn't really know him too well at the time. I'm like, dude, do you ever get this? Like, and he's a bit younger than us. He's looked at me like I was crazy.
And he doesn't fuck around
Yeah,
either. I can just imagine.
Yeah, I was like, maybe he doesn't speak English that good. I don't
And he
know.
was probably just like, he just wasn't there yet. He hadn't shot enough.
I can't
I don't
take
know.
this. I can't take this trigger finger, fucking.
Dude, it hurt.
Dude, you gotta get your shot within like a millionth of a second.
No,
You
it's
gotta
true.
get
It's
your
important.
grip
It is.
right.
It's your moneymaker. It is your moneymaker.
Yeah. And
There's
and that-
nothing worse than being late on a shot.
Dude, it's the worst because nothing worse than having to do it again.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah, dude. How would you like it on some gnarly thing? I mean, if I probably made you do something again.
Yeah.
And before we
Both
go
of you
there,
fucking guys have made me do shit again a bunch of times.
before we hit that, which I definitely want to go there, but I think that this is kind of like we were just talking about this before we got on air. But you talk about flow state when you're in the zone, we get it too, man.
Yeah.
You're in flow state. You just know, and like there's times
You're like in sync with the rider. You know when
fully
to shoot the
Dude, you
shot.
don't even know the trick they're gonna do. Like sometimes they're spinning, and it's just natural. It just comes to you. You're like, that's the moment. Comes around, and a lot of it, it's like, you can rip a sequence and you can get whatever that takes the pressure
frames.
off. But like a lot of times, we're shooting with lighting, which is always what I know you like to do, and I
Yeah.
like to do too. So it's one chance to
Yeah,
do
one
the thing.
shot at the one trick in the right moment.
Yeah, and so like sometimes dude's doing a thing like a gnarly thing. I'm like, I don't care what happens. I can't ask him to do this
Yeah.
twice. And so like you just
Breezy building gap, like guy
yeah,
could
stuff
die.
like that. And so like what I'll do is I'll throw a remote camera on sequence mode.
Nice.
And so I can have that little trigger in my hand. I can run a little pocket wizard to trigger that.
And you fire the whole sequence.
And as soon as he says dropping, I just hold down the button and I forget because you'll mess yourself up if you try
I
to
had a problem with that,
Yeah.
like doing too much at once.
Yeah, and so it's like you just make a habit of like, okay, the second they drop, whatever, you got a bunch of friends. This is in digital era, so you're not gonna run out of film. But you just like it's just going and you forget about it's even there, and then you just wait, get that still
one
shot, and then you got that insurance shot there. And then the hardest thing in that too is to not let go.
Yeah.
Because you can get the sequence.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, and sometimes you just want to naturally let go.
So
But
you just got to
anyway.
make sure you're
Yeah.
holding on.
But sometimes when that isn't even like an option, that's when it's flow state, and you're just like, all right, I'm feeling this. This is the moment. This is the peak, and this is where it's at.
And in
so-
our heads, you got to be in the right spot too, because if you're in the wrong spot, you won't like the photo as much as you could have liked it if you're in that other spot. There's
So
a lot to get to the flow state.
so many variables.
And I've seen you in the flow state when
Yeah, when
especially you got
Andy
those
gets
two
all excited
because he's
and-
got the two cameras going and he's walking around and then you know what though, I will say whenever Andy, actually I'll say both of you guys, but since Andy's the guest, I'll make it about him on this. But every time you've been like, you should do it again, it was always worth it. It was always went in the magazine.
Yeah, we
always,
try not to ask unless we have.
Oh,
to.
dude, it's the worst thing to have to ask.
Yeah.
Worst.
Unless
thing.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it depends on the feature for the rider though, because if it's like a
It's
gnarly,
too gnarly, yeah.
Let's say it's like a gnarly kink rail. Like I'll give an example of a trick. Like I front boarded this like big triple kink once, and the photographer was like, "Hey, do you mind doing one without the filmer when in the stairs when I'm done?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I'll do that for sure."
But then
and
after you
land
got
it,
it-
I'm like, I am not jumping on that fucking rail again because
Yeah.
every time that it's like you have to really, once your adrenaline comes down, right, you're really focused, and you maybe tried it 100 times. Every one of those tries, adrenaline, focus, and then once you land it, that all goes away. You can't just hop back on that bitch.
Well, and we don't want to be
and I
that
don't
guy
want to
that
ask
gets
you
you
to.
hurt.
Yeah, and also like, dude, maybe we're gonna get rolled, but before that even happens. So like for us, we come to a spot, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna like front board pretzel, or I'm gonna 270, and you're going cab 2, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna look like shit. But then I know you're going to front board it first to feel it out.
Yeah.
So then you got to be ready.
Yeah.
Because it's like people are setting things up, filmers setting up lights or something, and you're thinking you're practicing, and I'm like, this is as good as
his photo.
Yeah, I'm like, this is as good as it's going to get for me.
So
I got to
true.
get this now.
Especially if it's at night.
Let's bring up a little Andy quote from a rail trip that I've heard a few times. He goes, "Oh, down bar? That means sitting in the car looking at Instagram." So basically, there was an era where people started doing the car tows, and people started doing little like urban gaps, we'll call them. And then eventually Dan Brisse came to the scene and started flying from building to building. Now around that time there was like kind of a roof gap craze, and he was like, it was crazy imagery. I was like we were thinking people were gonna start dying soon, and
Same.
Yeah, I felt that way.
Both of you guys, Andy was shooting Dan Brisse a lot during this era, and it was like seemed like you guys would get a cover or 2-page spread. Everything he shot was just gold at the time. And I remember you were shooting with us, and I said to you, I said, "Hey Andy, why aren't you out shooting Brisse right now? Why are you with the B squad?" And your response was, "Well, you can't eat steak every night for dinner."
You really can't. You get old. Got to mix it up. Those veggies, the potatoes, good garlic toast. It's what makes you appreciate the steak even more. So thanks for providing all the sides.
All the side dishes. Dude,
there is meal.
Those building gaps. Being in the gut, wide angle is just the scariest thing on some of those Dan shots, because he could die, man.
Dude, the first time it ever
so
happened.
glad he made it out of that.
The first one it happened on.
Which one was it?
It's the one down by Trader Joe's. No, Trader Joe's.
Trader
off 7th.
Joe's. Yep.
That one. And we'd done a little one, the one by Alta High School.
Yep.
That one wasn't too crazy, but the thing that kind of was opening that up, because it was the winch era was coming around, and I had randomly like kind of hooked up with this guy who was like making winches. Like friend of a friend hooked him up. He's like, "Dude, you gotta check this thing out. This dude's like, he's making these wakeboard winches." And I was like, "Huh? What the hell? Okay." He's like, "I've seen what you guys do. I think you'd really use it." I'm like, "Okay, what the hell?" So I met. He's like, "Come just check it out." And so I did the test run on it. He's like, "Meet me at the school." And then we just like towed me across this field. And I'm like, "All right, how do I get one of these?" He's like, "I want to sell these. I'm developing it. So if you will just like help me develop it, I'll just give you this."
Is this the winch that broke someone's femur?
No, not mine.
Okay,
Nobody.
Somebody had one. That
No,
they left a handle on it or something.
Yeah, so I had this winch, dude, and I think it was probably the first winch, at least that wasn't attached to like a motorcycle. Like there were some sketchy ones in Minnesota that were on the back wheel of a Harley or something. It's kind of similar era, but I had this one, and this dude gave it to me, and he worked in like a machine shop around town, so it would break every day, and I just go down there, "Hey, can you fix this? Can you fix this?" So anyway, that was what opened up these gaps, and so I was like, I don't know if it was Dan's idea, if it was mine, or maybe he was like, "Oh, you got this winch, I want to do this little gap," and that was one by Alta, and that was reasonable, but it was sick. And then I think that was kind of a good snow week we had in the valley that time, and he's like, "I want to do this closeout," and so like it's over by like we were talking the spot by Trolley Square.
Oh, that closeout.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm gonna nose press it," and I'm like, "Oh, it'll be a sick shot," and he does it. Well, first of all, we're setting it up, and I'm like totally joking. I'm like, "Oh, that roof's right there. You bet you could jump to that."
And you were joking.
And 100% joking, like not even serious. And he looks at me, he's like, "Let's do it." And I was like,
this, you think, the first real roof
first
gap ever done?
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh no."
You were joking.
Yeah, and I was like, "Shit, this was my idea. If he gets hurt,
It's on you.
it's on me." And I'm like, no, you think you could do that? He's like, "Dude, totally." He's like, I'll do this little nose press on this closeout now, and we'll come back tomorrow and do this. And dude, we came back there, and he did it the next day, and it was sketchy. The winch wasn't fast enough.
Car tow.
Yeah, car tow for sure, which adds another element. And so, yeah, he did it, and dude, no problem. But that was That when that happened, that was like, wow,
And then
revolutionary.
they got bigger and bigger
And then
higher.
yeah, and then it was like a year later, maybe 2, I can't remember, but when he did the one over by your house.
Dude, I went and looked at that like a week ago, and still every time I see it, I'm like, this is so jacked.
I don't think anyone will ever do that, nor should they.
No.
That was stupid. And it's crazy. Like, it was one of those times where, you know, like it gets to be February in Salt Lake and you're like, it might not snow in the valley again. And we'd had a storm, but it wasn't quite enough. And it was kind of like, it's going to rain. And he's like, I'm doing it. And so, 1 sec.
Beer break.
I'm like, okay, there's not much snow, whatever. And we'd had a good week.
It was melting out, right?
Totally melting out. We'd had a good week, and it was pretty. It was, you know, we'd gotten a lot of shots. I think he was shooting for absinthe, and I was dating soon to be my wife, and she lived in Portland, and she's like, I want to come visit you. I'm like, yeah, it's hard, but you know, the snow's pretty much melted. Come this weekend, it'll be fine. Like, there's nothing else to shoot. We'll hang. It'll be fine. So of course she lands, and then I get the call, and I'm like, hey, I gotta go shoot this thing really quick, and it's just really important. She's like, really? I took time off work. I'm here. I flew out to see you. I'm like, I'm sorry. I just trust me. Yeah, I got to do this. So we roll up, and there's this tiny board.
Did she come with you?
Yeah, she came to this. She came to the spot, and there's this like, you know, strip of snow the width of a board, and
For that thing.
so sketchy.
We'll queue up this photo.
Yeah, and
People can see it.
and then get it all set up. It's getting dark, and it was like just nobody was motivated. Everyone was tired from a week of shoveling, and you know, and no one else was going to hit it, so none of the riders were all that psyched. So anyway, it happens. It's almost Dan's like, screw it, let's just do it, and slings up the car tow. My wife actually drove the car that picked him up on the other side to shuttle him back.
Nice.
And she's like, after he did it one time, she's like, he did it. I'm so used to watching Jackass. I just thought he was gonna like fall and get hurt because that's what you guys do. I'm like, he would have died.
Yeah, there's no on that thing.
She's like, that's so cool. He did it. And I think like she's driving him back to the, you know, to get another run. She's like, oh, that's really neat that you came over that thing.
With Dan.
And he's just like, Dan in the zone at the time. And here's some chick that just got thrown into the scene, mixing it up with him. And
He probably had laser Dan focus.
Laser. And
I
so
mean, that's do or die on that.
yeah, and that was the gnarliest one.
That one landed on the cover?
It wasn't a cover because it was a
It
spread.
was so wide.
Yeah, it was a spread.
The distance was like
Yeah,
crazy.
it wasn't set up, but I don't know. Maybe you know different. I think that's the gnarliest one ever done.
I think it's the as far as consequence factor.
Yeah, and I remember like I think I
The
was with
distance might be the furthest.
and just everything, and I think Jeremy kind of looked at it once years ago and laughed, and it was in my mind. And so after the can had been open for roof caps, I'm like, Dan,
Let's check this out.
I was like, Dan, I got a spot for you, but I got to make you a deal. Or I need you to make me a deal. You can't tell anyone I took you here. This was your idea. Because I was worried. I was like, maybe Jeremy's going to do this someday.
Yeah, true. You never
And it was
know.
kind of like, he might have shown me the spot. I think we would have found it eventually or whatever. And he's like, it's fine. And I'm like, look, and I don't really want to be known as the guy that's just pushing people into roof gaps. So as far as the story goes, and this is the first time I've ever really like come clean on this between me and Dan, I'm like, this is your spot. And that also kind of absolved me a little bit of like, if he gets hurt, this was his idea.
Thing was hairball, man.
Dude, it was so crazy. Like, it was messed.
See, I shot one with Dan. It was really easy to clear, but it was like 7 stories high.
Oh, in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
and
one.
like Duluth.
Yeah, the Duluth one.
The chances of not clearing it are very slim, but if you didn't clear it, straight up death. You know, if the rope, it was a car tow.
Yeah.
But the scariest part was it was all icy on the roof, and Randy like could almost not stop to give him the speed
that's
he needed.
another element of it,
and
too.
I remember Randy getting out of the car like in tears because he like almost killed Dan because they didn't get enough speed, but luckily he didn't go.
Yeah, and Dan's probably yelling at him.
And
do it again.
Dan was yelling at him, and he was seriously like on his knees, like crying, like, "Dude, I'm not trying to kill you today." And I think that was the last gap Dan ever did because
I
he
think
was
it was,
finally
too.
just like, "This shit is jacked."
And dude,
he had
that
a kid, and
that one was just that's the high water
something
mark.
went wrong. It's like there's no coming back.
That photo, all time. You got a couple angles on that too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was him and Bjorn. But on yours, the height, maybe he wouldn't have died, but I don't know. He probably would.
I think you would die because of your
The speed.
impact.
The speed.
Yeah,
Fly
and he
wall.
would have gone right into that cement wall. Yeah.
And you just shouldn't be out having sessions where there's a chance of death.
That was the gnarliest one.
Yeah. That one above that you shot, too.
When it does-
That was the cover. The one
that
that was
one was-
above
That's
it.
what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Is the cover one.
that one was
That's-
really creative perspective.
Yeah, and that was like pretty. It was more of a step down.
And the landing.
Yeah.
And through like a...
It was a weird landing
Narrow landing.
into a patio landing, but
Yeah.
like better chance of not dying
Yeah.
on that one.
But
and
really
and
cool
more
looking.
and more aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, more aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know what's an incredible thing about that era, though? If you think about it's kind of pivoted from that. Now people aren't doing as like giant of builds on these landings. It's not as like extravagant of street builds from what I'm seeing. But if you think about Dan, I hope we have him on the show one day to talk about this. But he used to have a enclosed trailer that was like the mobile
It was so sick.
like assault unit. He had a skid steer, which is like a bobcat in there. He had like every shovel,
Everything you ever
generator, winch, and you're driving around and you're renting heavy equipment to build a snowboard spot. It's like so ridiculous.
Sometimes they'd give him the heavy equipment for free, too, just because he'd go in, do the talk. We'd get permission to hit spots with him off
Yeah.
a fake waiver, maybe, that he
Oh
made.
man. Yeah, I mean, dude, I hit a spot in a rock quarry. That one on the like a weird yellow crane thing. That
Oh,
you
that
board
was
slides.
a sick one.
That's a sick one.
Great
Holy
shot.
crap! And he walked into this building and
Gets permission, huh?
sweet talked him into permission. It was insane. I mean, there was no way you were doing it otherwise. It was
Yeah.
basically, I have nothing to lose. But it was in his hometown where he grew up, like Cold Springs, Minnesota. and-
Local hero.
Yeah, he's kind of a local hero. And dude, I don't know what the guy who gave permission was thinking. What are they going to get out of this?
Yeah.
They're
yeah,
getting like
true.
a
They get
signed
nothing.
poster in the break room.
A story to
coulda had-
tell.
Could have
Local
had like
hero
a
Dan.
multi-million-dollar lawsuit instead. It's like the risk reward on that was
He had that
so out
fake
of
waiver, though.
whack. Yeah, dude, I wouldn't. Yeah,
And it was X Games always got people excited.
might have been the last like urban spot I shot with Dan. But
Really? That was a
definitely
sick one.
going out
No
with a
slide
bang.
pretzel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was a dope spot.
yeah.
All right. It's time for a special part of the show. You know what that is, Andy?
Might be special to you.
That's the attitude.
That was perfect.
Name That Video part is presented by the Do Tour. Now, one thing about the Do Tour that is really cool that doesn't get talked about enough is the adaptive slalom. So they have a race with all kinds of great people in it. And, you know, one story I was reading was a guy who has a prosthetic leg that was blown off from an IED over in Afghanistan and out there racing. And it's just kick-ass event. So major shout out to the Do Tour. Hopefully it happens this year and you guys get a chance to check it out. Now let's get into Name That Video part, which is part of the show that photographers don't give a shit about.
Not true. I respect your guys' passion. You're students of the game. It's just not what really drove us to get where we're at. But dude, nothing but respect, you know. I gotta say though, if I just about negative confidence, and I know everybody says their confidence is pretty low in this, but if you can find a video that I know, this says more about you than it does about me. Because that's how much of a
Chris
student of the
tries
game
to throw
you
up
are.
some meatballs.
Yeah, well, let's just say that because I literally can only think of about 2 songs that I would recognize from a video part, and you played one of them recently, so that's
So he's
out.
not going to play that.
Yeah. But it was funny. I was listening to that episode. It was actually Haley's episode, and immediately the song came on, and I was like, "Oh, that's Ika," and so I can see the twitch. I can see where that comes from because I just love the song always, and I love Ika. But I was always like, so I watched that video a lot. And I thought
So we need a 0 through 10 scale then. Tell us your confidence level.
it's going to be the smallest number possible above 0.
0.0001.
Yeah, name the decimal.
Name that decimal
You're good
point.
with the hints though, so maybe we can get there.
Okay. All right, I'll give you a hint before since you're so low in confidence. It may be one of your big time bros. Here we go.
I know it's the Spits.
Yeah, I can picture this part.
It's definitely the Spits. It's probably from Love Hate.
That's correct.
And it's probably Mikey.
That is incorrect.
Matty Ryan.
Incorrect.
Damn it.
Okay, wait, hold on. I
We got two of them down.
I
right there.
actually have no idea who it is. I just knew. You got to give me a little props that I knew the video.
Yeah.
And I always know the band, by the way, when you play it. It seems like,
Give me a
unless it's
second.
hip hop. But
Name some other people in the movie.
all right, okay. Daryl Mathis.
That is correct. We're going to give you this participation
Come
award.
on, kind of earned it.
Yeah, you earned it.
Oh, you
A
earned
little
it.
bit.
You got the,
I've earned
you
it
got
a
the
little more.
movie, dude.
What we got here is the igloo cooler that is wrapped in all over print.
It's gonna go nice in your new.
And you
yes,
got
it
a
is.
bomb hole crew neck in there and a bomb hole mug, a Stonie Budz air freshener.
All of which will go great in the new rig.
all will go great in the
Thanks, guys. That's wow.
I
feel a
feel
lot
like
better now.
I was thinking I think Daryl's going to be disappointed.
Yeah, he probably is.
Well, you threw it off because you were like, it's one of your big time
That
buds.
made
and
me
so
think it was
could've-
Mikey.
I know. I was like, is it going to, because you've given some people some meatballs before. And I'm like, would he really do it this obvious? And I was like, whatever. It was going to be one of those two guys. But anyway, great song and obviously great video.
Okay, well, let's get into the name that video part section that is for the listeners.
Hey, real quick, those prize packs are on the way, guys. I don't know how behind we are, but they're coming. You know, send us if you haven't got yours. Send a DM. I'll put it back on the list. We'll get it out.
Appreciate your guys' patience for our absolute junk show. You may think
Squeaky wheel gets the grease, so
It's
hit
true.
me up.
you may think we're a legitimate operation. That is far from the truth. You guys know the drill. Name that video part. Here we go.
I keep that kush and then white sag.
That's just
Okay.
a classic.
All right.
And that is my dog.
Don't know who that is.
And thank you guys.
Is that Tommy Jesse Video Gracias?
Kind of feels like we're coming back from halftime.
We
Yes,
are.
it is. It is. And I want to jump right into some fucking hot takes, dude.
Hot take.
All right.
What you got?
Okay, MJ is snowboarding. Who you got?
You going there?
It's probably a generational thing, but it's hard to say that Terrier is not the MJ, and it's Terrier, not Terrier. What I hear you say every week. I don't know if there you say it like there's a U in there, like Terrier.
You like to say
Turrier.
Turge or
I don't
Turrier.
know the guy. I don't know how to fucking say his name.
It sounds like you've been hanging out. It sounds like you've been hanging out in Oslo too many times.
Terrier.
You're trying to like
Grandpa
adapt.
T?
Yeah, do a little like sponge up the accent with the way you say it.
See, I'm with Andy on that.
I got a little French Canadian in me. It's a little French info.
I'm gonna go Terrier, and I'm gonna go Terrier just for a couple reasons. So, obviously different era, but the way he came up, he dominated the contest scene. He also raised the stakes. He took everything to a lot higher level than anyone thought was possible. And then he went out and made videos, and the videos were monumental, crazy stuff. At least to us. I hope you watch those videos.
Subject Hawkinson is a phenomenal flick.
Yeah, and so and he's still doing it. So it's hard for me to not. But again, I know I've heard you throw out JP, and you can make a really good argument for that too. I think it's maybe a generational thing, but for me, the hot take, Terry Hawkinson.
You're entitled to your opinion. Okay, next question. Worst trend in snowboarding?
Worst trend in snowboarding, and this can be past or present.
Yeah, you kind of
Or future.
hit it.
All right,
Let them know, dude. Let it bark.
I think you know where I'm going because we talked about it on the Patreon. But and no disrespect, because I think you're a very talented rider, and I'm glad I don't see it happen too many times, and I'm glad it didn't inspire a big movement. But the whole rolling around on the back thing between the hits, it was a hard one for me, and it was a hard one for a lot of people I've talked to. So I'm glad that one's maybe come and gone. But bonus round on that, and again, sorry, Chris, but the front flip out, that has no place in snowboarding.
Let's go. You're not alone in that. A lot of people hate the front flip.
Really not a good look.
Dude, it's the worst when you don't know it's coming. And then it
Exactly.
happens. You're just like, whoa.
You want to talk about
What just happened?
a bad photo?
Yeah. The
Do
front flip
anything
out.
front flip related, really,
Yeah.
for that matter.
Yeah, you want to talk about grabbing a defeat from the jaws of victory.
I'll tell you what. You know what my shit is with front flips, though? I was a hater, avid hater.
You were. You used to be?
Actually, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to be honest. I was never a hater. I rode with Scott and Beresford, and they could front flip any little undulation in the snow. And I just couldn't do it. I wanted to learn them so bad, okay? And then when I finally learned them, I realized if anybody hasn't ever done a front flip, they are fun as fuck, dude. Like you can't. Once you learn, you just tip over and you just do a flip, land back on your board. Like I'm sorry, like the people that hate on front flips are people that aren't busting them because they're fun as shit. Dude.
All right,
wackest brand.
Ooh.
Maybe a brand that owes you money that fucked you over. Maybe let's get some shit going.
Or just a whack brand. They're out there.
I don't know. Head snowboards. I don't know if they're still around.
Are they still? I don't know if they're around or not.
And dude,
I see those fuckers.
Dude, little side story. Like the only I have a dream job. I think you probably feel the same way,
Yeah.
Stonie. And like they hit me up to do a photo shoot once, and it was good money.
You said no?
No, only a fool would say no. And I mean, it was
Yeah.
especially
Top dollar.
especially 2020 money. Like
Yeah.
it's fucking crazy. Your salary almost. But this is like in the heyday. It's like, and so like I'm like skipping out on Mac Dog shoots because I got to go do this head shoot because you can't say no in
Yeah.
like middle of winter. Their team hadn't heard of like 3/4 of the people, and I went and I'm like, how bad could it be? It's totally worth it. I was miserable.
Really?
10 days, pure misery. And so I guess I always have this thing in my.
Where'd you go?
It was all in Tahoe, and
The kids were probably so excited Andy Wright was there.
kind of maybe I don't know. There was a couple cool dudes on
Yeah.
on the brand, like Michael Goldschmidt. You guys probably.
I grew up competing against.
Yeah, he was
Goldschmidt.
probably one
Yeah,
of your boys, Goldie.
Yeah, he fucking mopped me up in half pipe
Mopped
contest.
you up.
He was
But it was
cool.
that bad, huh?
Yeah, it was just I just felt like a sellout, and it was like the first time it felt like work, where I was just like, you know what, this feels like a job, and I don't know about you, but it doesn't. It's not often it feels like
It's
a
not
job.
often it feels like a
So
job.
for me, it's got to be head, just for that
Okay,
reason.
I
we
like
got
that.
some more hot takes here. I got a bunch. So, hardest worker.
There's a lot of dudes in that category, or just a few that just not one more than the other. But I mean, Jeremy comes to mind, obviously, because I just listened to his episode.
Jeremy Jones.
Jeremy Jones, sorry. Seth Hewitt and Torstein Horgmo. That guy works his butt off. So those guys, there's no like thing they can't. And Dan Brisse too, man. Dan really puts in the work. And there's really like no obstacle that they can't overcome to making something happen. And you've probably experienced
Yeah.
it too. It's like,
There's nothing like that when there's nothing that's going to stop that.
yeah. And they're just like, oh, we got to the spot. There's a lamppost in the way. Oh, we'll just come back tonight and cut out the lamppost.
Yeah, we'll just remove
Straight
this.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah. Or they're just like, oh, it's like, I don't know, so many things you can overcome. And they do. I mean, I would never. I'd be like, oh, well, next, I guess we're not shooting this. They're like, what do you mean? What?
yeah. Oh, what do you mean? We'll remove the
Yeah.
deck off this house.
So, yeah, those four guys are probably the hardest working guys I've probably
Okay,
experienced.
I got a new hot take for you. Laziest snowboarder.
Jen Anderson.
Jed? He's giving an air horn.
Sorry, nothing but respect, but that dude.
You went quick on
I
that,
mean-
too. You didn't have to think.
Dude didn't even know which way to turn the shovel, let alone how to use it. And, like, there was an era. Dude, Jed, I love you.
Yeah, he's one of
Fucking-
the best.
If not.
He's just not
Yeah.
moving a lot of volume when it comes to snow.
Yeah, but I mean, like, dude, I was on a trip and like Kuzik was carrying his gloves around for him and stuff like that. I mean, it was like
Really?
it was ridiculous. So it's got to go
Just
to
because
Jed.
he'd forget him?
I just like couldn't
Just-
be bothered.
yeah,
with, like,
couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, that stuff. But like, I don't know. It probably comes with the territory of just being such a natural talent. Everything
Yeah.
comes so easy for him, and everything would just get set up. But like, I'm sure he sets up his spots now. But back then, it was.
Yeah, he probably has a whole new approach now.
I would imagine.
Maybe.
Okay, I know you're big on football. I know you're a big Steelers fan.
Understatement.
Okay, who's the? We'll start with this one because this will be a great. See where it goes. Who's the Tom Brady of snowboarding for you?
Well, did we not?
Here we go. Here we go.
Well, would it not be Terry? I mean, Tom Brady is kind of unquestionably the GOAT. I'll give him his respect. You know what? Dude, I'm a fan of the game.
Okay.
I don't have to. I can hate the player, but I can love the game. That guy's good, and he's proven it on the biggest stage. And obviously, you know, Patriots have been a big thorn in the side. Sorry, you're about to fall asleep over there, Stone. This is the
What? What are you guys talking about?
football segment of the podcast.
I don't even know what football is.
You're gonna have to reel us back in. But no, Brady's done it on the biggest stage, man, and he's delivered. So, I mean, you could say Shaun White too, just because of the accolades, I suppose. You know, obviously Shaun White has won everything. Brady's won everything, has every record. So, between those two.
Okay, you're Steelers fan. Who's the Ben Roethlisberger of snowboarding?
Well, if
I don't even know who that is.
That's the quarterback of the Steelers.
If Will Ferrell snowboards,
I like that answer, though. It makes me want to know who he is.
a big guy. Who was that guy years ago? Charlie Marachi.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go.
He's kind of a bigger dude, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe what's? Oh God, I hate that I can't think of his name. Marcus.
Marcus Rand?
Marcus Rand.
So our take is Marcus Rand is the Ben Roethlisberger of snowboarding.
Yeah,
I love it.
give me one of those guys.
Oh, that's a great answer. All right, let's pivot into some other chatter.
I got
here.
one quick question.
Okay,
sure.
What's your favorite photo you ever shot? No, it's a hard question.
Oh man, that's the impossible one.
It
hold on,
is.
so
You don't have to answer it.
Yeah. Do you have one?
No, I couldn't. I couldn't figure
That's
that one out.
impossible. Let's like what's your favorite kid? Or
Yeah.
What's your favorite song ever? So
I mean, I'd end up getting on so many, and then it would change.
I know,
but I didn't know
exactly.
if maybe you had one that stood out for you.
and you have so much like emotional attachment to the shots.
Yeah.
That's like it's just weird things. So the answer you're supposed to say is the next one I'm gonna take.
Is that the answer?
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to say.
haven't shot it yet, man.
Yeah.
That's a stupid answer.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to go
Officially.
one more Patreon
Yeah, hit him with a
question
Patreon.
because we're just talking about some photography stuff. And this one you might be able to answer. This is from Jeremy Richardson, and he says, "You're sitting down with Andy Wright. WTF? That guy is a G." So he gives you a little props.
Give him a little
first.
air horn for
All
that.
right. Thanks for that. I
Andy.
don't get that often.
Yeah, I thought you might like that. He says, Andy, if you could shoot with only one lens for the rest of your life, which would it be?
70 to 200.
The old money maker, huh?
It's the money maker. You call it that too? Yeah, for sure. It's hard not to say fish.
Yeah, true.
It's basically-
I'm more of a definitely 7200.
Fish makes the magic when it works, though.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes unreal.
When it's right.
Surreal.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, it didn't look anything like this in real life, but this is what's on my camera. But 7200 is just the workhorse.
And yours is a Canon 7200, correct?
It is a Canon 70 to 200. Yours is a Nikon, correct?
Nikon, yeah.
Okay, great.
I just want to clarify that for the viewers.
I'm
For the
not.
layman.
I don't know. What do you? I don't think.
I don't think there's a difference.
I don't think gear
Yeah.
really matters.
A lot of people actually have been hitting me up lately asking me, like, what camera should I get? And I'm usually just Nikon, Canon, Sony. Can't go wrong.
You know, dude, shooting Sonys.
No, but I hear a lot of people talking about it, so I throw it on the list.
You guys got to get a deal. Somebody's got to give you guys a deal. So you say, you know what? Nikon is the one you want.
Dude, not many deals being thrown around. I think I just saw Tiba got hooked up with
I saw
Canon.
that.
And I think because they're trying to really push that mirrorless thing.
Yeah.
Because they're doing the mirrorless, but he's on Tiba
'Cause
Jefferson.
I saw Pierre left a funny comment on there making fun of their, they were like, looking at Tiba's unique perspective. And Pierre was like, unique perspective? What the fuck? He said something like that, just totally calling him out on their whack text.
Pierre Wickberg?
Yeah.
Is there any better troll in snowboarding than Pierre Wickberg?
He was so good
Air
with it.
horn, please.
Yeah, oh, big time.
He's so awesome.
King hater.
And then he screenshotted his comment on Atiba's thing and put it in his story.
Love it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was just last night, too. It's
That
so
guy
funny.
goes to battle.
Yeah, loves it.
Keyboard warrior.
Okay, well, while we're on the subject of photog stuff, I got, obviously,
He's a photographer.
big subject here. We got a guest question. And
Oh.
the guest question is presented by Solomon Snowboards. And since we've been doing this, I've actually been riding a bunch of the Solomons, and I've landed on the Solomon 6-piece being my favorite board after riding other ones. It turns like a dream. I ride it, as far as park boards, it's kind of on the stiffer side of things. But yeah, like, I mean, if you like a real noodle, it's maybe not your board. But for me, I'm absolutely loving that board. The Solomon 6-piece, I ride the 155. And with that,
I ride the biggest one, and it's dope, too. I agree.
the biggest one's a 155.
Is it? I thought there was
Yeah.
one bigger.
No, that's it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's my
I
board,
thought I
dude.
was riding a 157.
No, it's in increments of 5. 145, 150, 155.
He
But
might know.
Anyway, I didn't.
Sounds about right, though, for me.
So,
I'm going to call it a 157.
yeah.
Just for prosperity's sake.
So, Budz' favorite is the non-existent 157. Let's get into the guest question from none other than Daryl Mathis.
What's up, guys? This is Daryl Mathis. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to Eastone and Grandy's. Thanks for having me on Bombhole. Andy Wright, this question is for you. However, I know if Eastone had to answer this question, who he would pick. But this question is for Andy Wright. We all know that you had plenty of covers for Transworld, and if you had to narrow it down just to one, what cover would that be? And maybe you can give us a little bit behind the scenes of that day when you took that photo, and did you even think that was going to be a cover? All right, guys, take care.
Tough question, but I'm going to go with my cover of Arthur Longo over at this Gap in France. And the reason why, first of all, I love the photo. One of my favorites still. It's one to this day I look at, and if I took it today, I would be frothing. Couldn't believe the back of my camera when it would just look surreal. But the reason I choose that and it sticks out is it's a fold-out gate spread cover, I don't know what you would call it, like
double page butt
I think
cheek
they
spread.
call them gate spreads.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway,
Or a
so it was
fold-out.
my only fold-out cover, and I think maybe the only fold-out cover they ever did for Transworld. So it was
The
kind of
snowboarder only did one as well.
yeah, and it was kind of one of those shots where like they just made it work because they were like, this has to be a cover, it can't be cropped, and props to them for. I'm sure it wasn't easy to probably talk to whoever had the inside front cover for that issue. It was
You
probably
had to
Burton.
sell that, right?
Yeah, just be like, look, guys, we're gonna do something different, and probably gonna cost you a little bit more. But anyway, that was my shot, and that was actually thanks. That was an easy answer. Stand behind that.
Another cover I want to talk about too was Mikey Leblanc. On his episode, he talked about how he went to a silent retreat, and during this silent retreat, he basically like lined up a time for you to shoot a cover, right?
Well, we didn't know it was going to be a cover at the time, but yeah, this story, it's just too amazing. And Mikey did a pretty good job covering it, but I mean, everything he said was true. And just to like recap, it was, Mikey was, obviously into his Zen retreats. Obviously Zen Buddhism, and part of that is doing these like really intense retreats where they go and don't talk to each other for like a weeks at a time or something like that. But it had just snowed, and there was this fence gap over by East High. I'm sure you've seen it. And he'd actually tried it maybe a year prior. We were shooting that big down bar that's just a little further down that's now like knobbed to hell that no one ever does anymore. And he didn't want any piece of that. And so he's like, I'm going to go set up this fence thing. And come over when you guys are done. And we went over there, and I think he clipped when he went over at that time. Maybe not enough speed or something went wrong. He didn't get like hurt. I mean, he never really got hurt. But it was probably always on his mind to come back and do it again when they got snow, and it was probably a couple of years. But he was like, dude, remember that fence? I want to do that. Or maybe this was all via text because, obviously he wasn't talking. But it was like, I have a break from 10:30 to 11:15 tomorrow or something ridiculous small
45
window.
minutes.
Yeah. Meet me there at 10:40, and let's shoot this. And, dude, there wasn't that much snow. It was like November. Probably early. He hadn't snowboarded, like not once. Not like, I went to the mountain or there's this pre-bone zone or spot or anything like that. Guaranteed first time strapping in for the year, and it was just straight to that thing. And front one it. It was just one of those ones that just worked. It was amazing.
And he didn't talk to you the whole time.
He might have. I think he might have broken ranks. He was too pumped up.
Yeah, that would be hard.
But Mike used to do this awesome thing where he would like match the kit to the spot. So he showed up. Did he talk about that?
Yeah, he did.
49ers jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Classic.
And it totally matched the spot.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That was an amazing photo.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that just worked out. No lighting. It was just good light early morning, and just made it happen. So, and love that shot still to this
And
day.
then that spot's still there, but didn't they build something near it or something?
Yeah, I think there's some.
Yeah,
Dude,
building.
newer
I'll
things.
never forget the amount of times if somebody rolls up wearing like black pants and a black hoodie, just for a photographer, like Andy be like, do you have anything more black that you can wear? Because like basically,
Especially you got someone like Andy who enjoys flash photography. Black just absorbs your flash, and
And white's worse.
yeah, white pops, like-
White and flash is actually worse.
Yeah.
But black's tough, obvious for a lot of reasons, but especially at night. Any part
Yeah.
of you against the sky, and you kind of get amputated. But
yeah.
yeah, that's definitely one of my quotes I've worn out a lot over the years. Is that the blackest thing you have?
The color just makes the
Dark-
shot look
double
better.
black?
you want that
Unfortunately,
Skittles red pants,
Kind of,
yellow.
because you can cross the line too. You know
This
what I
shit
mean?
gets too crazy sometimes.
Dude, it's
though.
like that's part of being like a successful pro is knowing
Yeah.
how to dress yourself.
knowing
There's
how to-
just
what to wear.
yeah, like there's. I mean, you do a good job, and I notice you always talk about kits. Kits are big on your. We talked about it today, I think.
I wore my Patriots for the listeners that aren't watching. I wore my Patriots crew neck to make Andy angry.
But yeah, dudes that know how to dress or like, and
helps.
and tastefully, you know what I mean, and like not look like kooks. I mean,
Helps
it's like,
their image too.
What about shitty trick, incredible kit? Does that combo work or?
It helps.
I think it can help.
I've heard Joe Sexton be like, I don't know, I just really like my outfit on that spot.
You've heard him say that.
Oh yeah, he definitely pushed the envelope. He was very kit conscious. Can we coin that term? Kit
Yeah,
conscious.
he's kit
Kid
conscious.
conscious.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
You could throw him for a loop. You could be like, Joe, your pants, they look a little weird.
Dude, I'll throw you a couple photos to run in the episode of like, kits that Joe's run over the years.
Remember when he first came out, dude? He'd walk some wild stuff. It was like big jerseys, maybe with super tight pants. I think when he first dropped,
and long hair.
yeah, and his long hair.
A little lost at that moment. He was on Tech 9. He was like a gypsy, but then he was also wearing the Tech 9 jersey.
Yeah, he was just out there.
Well, whatever sticks.
Yeah, worked for him, I guess. in
Look
the
at
end.
him now. He's
Yeah.
doing great.
Look at him now.
Okay, well, another thing that's cool, being somebody from our kind of cut from similar cloth of the snowboarding culture, what you've managed to do with your money, which we can go back and cover some biscuits in a little bit, but I always thought it was cool how you took the biscuits that you earned from snowboarding photography, and why don't you tell the people what you did with them and kind of set yourself up?
Well, I'm a bit of a hoarder. Comes that money. Me and my money, I don't like to part with it. I'm sure that's no secret amongst people who know me, but I've just invested a little bit in real estate and a little bit in the stock market. I got pretty lucky. I hit a home run with Apple. I got in at a good time.
You got in way early, right?
I mean, I didn't think it was early at the time, but it was a good time to jump in. It was, like when it was all melting down in 2008, the first crash, and it felt crazy. And I'm not a stock guy. I've only lost money in stocks before. Like, I'm the fool that bought Ride stock.
Oh, you
Didn't
did?
make any money. Oh yeah, I bought Ride stock, and then also on the investment tip, and maybe you're in the same boat, but I mean, I was an investor in a hotel in South Lake Tahoe.
Two of them.
One called the Block. Yeah, by great
Still
intentions.
recovering.
Yeah, still recovering. But dude, I was. I mean, I don't know how deep you were in, but I was
Too deep.
Yeah, I was in like 24K probably.
I was in that twice.
Yeah.
One in each.
But different era, man. Money flowed.
Yeah.
24K just didn't seem like that's a psychotic amount of money right now.
I used to think about money and buying stuff as like, that's just selling one photo. I can buy that.
Yeah, well.
No, like not that, but like if something costs like $2,000 or $2,500, it's like
sure.
that's one photo. Fuck it.
Yeah, like when you're shopping for camera gear and lenses
Yeah.
and stuff like
That's
that.
a photo. I would just think of things as a photo, but now it's a whole different world.
Yeah, so I had some misses, but then I got I got lucky on the Apple, but I mean I've been a fan of Apple. I think going back to when I was the desktop publishing guru at Kinko's, they put me on an Apple computer, and I was just like all in. I was, like I was saying, studying the catalogs and stuff like that. So it's kind of an easy decision. But actually, what led me to it, and I'd been wanting to do it for years, and they were dropping the iPhone. The first iPhone was coming out, and I'm sure several people had always kind of envisioned like, okay, what if we had a phone that did all these things? So they're coming out with the iPhone, and I'm like, I should go buy one. And I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to buy the stock. And when the stock makes me enough money to buy the phone, I'll buy the phone. 3 hours later.
3 hours?
Well, I don't know. It was probably the
pretty
same day.
much.
Yeah, the phone drops.
Like what kind of investment we talking? Initial investment?
I went in pretty big on Apple. Well, so initially I didn't go that big. I was like, I'll put $1,000 in and I'll get a phone, and that went quick. But then when it all melted down, I think maybe that same year when the financial first collapse happened in 2008, I was like, fuck it, I'm putting $50,000 in right now.
Wow.
And that felt really unnatural. It's like throwing money at a burning building.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, stock market's in flames. And I'm like, I'm going to put $50,000 in it.
And what was the stock at that point? Do you
I
remember?
don't even remember. It
was low
split.
though, right?
Yeah, it split a few times. So yeah, that's.
And do
that
you
was a
still
good
have
move.
some?
I do.
Nice. And it's still going up from what I...
Well,
Did it like crash once and then go big recently?
I don't know. It's back and forth. You can
Yeah.
watch it all day and obsess. And
You
try
know, you
not
only
to.
lose in the stock market if you sell when it's down. So
It's true. You
Yeah.
haven't lost till it's down. But then, like they
Or
say
until you
that,
sell when it's
or
down.
they go out of business. So like I'm
Happened to me
not
with
a stock
Quicksilver.
guru. Believe me, I just got lucky. But I think someone told me advice like if you're gonna buy into the stock market, buy into something you believe in that you know about. And
Great
like
advice.
I'm such a fool because like I don't know about you guys, but like I was on Netflix day one. You know, like
True.
pre-streaming. Why didn't I buy Netflix? I actually did buy Netflix at one point when it was low, and I panicked and sold it because like there was all this talk like it wasn't going to work out, and I'm not kicking myself for that. But anyway, things, you know, that are so obvious, like Amazon. Why didn't I buy Amazon? Duh. Like think about that stuff.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah,
It's
so
always-
so Airbnb's doing an IPO, allegedly. By the time this airs, it might have already happened. So that's a temptation because I'm a big believer in Airbnb, and that's one of the income streams I have going on right now is I do Airbnb, one of the properties I have. I actually used to live in, and when we moved out, we moved to a new house, we just left everything behind and just Airbnb'd the place.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so you have, I think, a handful of properties, something like that, right? And
Yeah.
and you did well with Apple. And I had asked you a question. I said, you set yourself up pretty well, and you had a pretty good answer for that.
I don't think I'm looking for a job. The LinkedIn isn't getting updated.
Yeah, exactly.
You won't be getting. No one's going to be getting a LinkedIn update in their email box.
It's
from
like
me.
that, huh?
Well, I mean,
Because you have properties that are working
not
for
living
you.
large, but the
Yeah.
properties are working, so it's like you can make it happen.
That's so dope.
Yeah, but I mean, like
Congrats.
this is what I want. I don't, dude. How are we ever gonna have jobs? Look at the lives we just lived.
Yeah, we're fucked.
What are we gonna do?
We are fucked.
Completely.
That's why I just sit here and talk shit. Hopefully this pans out.
And you found your way. Yeah, I think it will. I think you
He's
might
a
be onto
banter
something.
god,
Dude, my chick and I almost came up hardcore with Bitcoin. Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of this story or the thing called Silk Road, where you could go online and buy drugs?
Oh,
Yes.
In
Yeah.
order
Yeah.
to
Oh, yeah.
buy drugs,
Yep, you had to
you had to get Bitcoin. So we bought all this Bitcoin because we like drugs, whatever. And
Side note.
side note. And so years go by. Silk Road dude gets arrested. That whole thing crashes. And then my chick was like, she saw that Bitcoin went up to some crazy, ridiculous number. And she's like, I have Bitcoin. And we looked, and she had like a bunch of Bitcoin.
Wow.
And we lost the authentication code.
Jesus.
And
Might have had something to do with the
seriously,
drugs.
it would have been worth something like $350,000.
Yikes.
And the company that we bought it from, if you didn't, there was a point where they got seized by the FBI because there were so many weird things going on.
Yeah.
This Japanese company. And they sent out all these emails saying you have to make your claim now. And they were offering, when the FBI took all the money, they offered it back. And we missed the emails and lost the authentication code. Found it all after the fact.
Oh,
for
my God.
about one day, I thought we had $350,000.
Sounds
And
like a pretty
then,
good investment, honestly.
It was a great day thinking that I was rich. Like we fully were like, this is it. I read all these articles and then we tried to figure it out and get the money and we were fucked.
Oh, dude.
Rich for a day.
Yeah.
Here today, gone tomorrow.
Easy come, easy go.
That's what I've learned from investments like the Block and things like that, you know?
Oh, man. You were in the circle bar, too, huh?
Yeah, Circle
Oh,
Bar.
sorry.
That guy dipped on me.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, bud.
True.
Yeah.
You know?
Now I got this guy, dude. I'm just trying to let some of his luck rub off on me.
Oh yeah, we got this. We're a couple geniuses sitting in the garage
Yeah, couple
solving
geniuses.
solving all the world's problems.
Hashing out the world's problems.
Huffing kerosene.
It's actually freezing in here. We had to turn off the heater.
I am
Our
not cold at all.
budget is not flowing like the Nile.
Dude, we all need to get ready for winter, so this is good
True.
training for us.
It is training.
There's nothing like those first days out when you actually freeze to death.
Exactly.
Hey, one thing that we kind of breezed over, I want to run back and
Dan
talk
breezed
about.
over?
Yeah, we Dan breezied over actually. Shout out to D Breeze. A little fun fact: Dan Breezy once drove a Plymouth Breeze when I first met him. I'm not sure if he bought it because of his name or what, but
Pretty sure.
if so, legendary move. Now, you know what's cool to talk about is like that dynamic, that important dynamic, the filmer photographer dynamic. Like some guys I've shot with, I'm like, dude, we just do not click. But both you broskies, like we had fucking good dynamic. It was good
That's
times.
probably just an important thing for a photographer or video guy to make sure they click with the crew.
Yeah. Are you saying like dynamic between photographer and filmer or writer?
Rider.
I'm actually talking about
Rider.
rider. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
let's first talk about that. Then let's talk about the filmer
Yeah.
photographer.
Yeah, because writer's pretty easy, man. It's like, I think, speaking for myself, and I'm sure it's the same way, it's like, we obviously respect what you do. And as a fan of snowboarding, I'm not going to be like, yo, go bigger, do this trick, your style is whack, things like that. That's not my place. And so I think you live by those rules, you're gonna probably go pretty far.
And they're all cool, most of them.
Yeah, and I'd say even the most golden rule is like, dude, I could do that. Don't ever say that.
Yeah.
And don't ever do it. Don't ever attempt. There's a photographer who's been not in the game anymore, but that was one of his things, is he would strap in and hit the spot, and that didn't go over very well, as you can imagine. So anyway, kind of always came down.
Who was that? Do I know?
Yeah.
I'll have to
He
think about
used
it.
to live close to here.
Oh, he did. Fuck. I can't think of it. You have to tell me.
I know what
now.
you're talking about. Go ahead,
You do.
continue. Yeah.
Anyway, so it kind of came natural. It's Ryder, but I'm glad you think that, because glad we had a good rapport. I never knew with the whole like Patriot-Steeler rivalry where we stood.
Well, going back to that, one quick story before we get over this topic. We were in Worcester, Massachusetts. Came out to Mass. You stayed with me for a Videograss trip, and we had a whole crew of people at my parents' house. And I remember you were wearing a Steelers hat, and a pedestrian that was in the vicinity where we were filming and shooting photos, snowboarding, walks by you and says, "Excuse me, sir, do you know that you woke up this morning and accidentally put on a Pittsburgh Steelers hat?" And it was a great roast from a Bostonian.
Happened, huh?
Well, I was on their hometown, and hey, I'm so glad you did the accent too. By the way, you were setting that up, and I'm like, please do the accent, very authentic. But I was representing, and I was behind enemy lines.
You weren't scared, huh?
Respect. I thought maybe you'd give me a little respect for sticking it out.
Oh, yeah.
I'd never really been
Behind
to Boston.
enemy lines.
I've only heard the stories of Boston. I didn't know how hard I was going to get rolled. I was just like, it was playoffs though, man. It was like I had to show my spirit. We were in the playoffs this year. That's nothing to you. That's every year. You're like, oh, playoffs. Wake me up when it gets to the championship game.
I'll tell you what I realize is that now that the Patriots suck, and then I see the Kansas City Chiefs fans, and I'm like, these guys are so fucking annoying. And I'm like, that's why everybody hates the Patriots. I'm like on the outside looking in, like.
Yeah, I got to bring something up.
Okay.
Somebody tipped
Here
me
we go.
off. Somebody tipped me off that you said you were jumping ship this season. That you might be down with the Bills this season.
Yeah, straight up.
Where are the Bills from?
I'll tell you,
Division rival.
I'll tell you what.
What kind of fan does that?
Where are the Bills from?
Let me tell you something.
Buffalo.
Buffalo Bills.
In true New England fashion, when your team starts sucking, you turn your back on your team.
That's what you.
The media turns their back on them. They're a bunch of bums. They're a bunch of pieces of shit. That's actually as most
Do they
New
say
England
that on
as
the
you
news?
can get.
These bums.
No, like the sports writers
Yeah.
just like rip them to shreds as
Really?
soon as because we title town. It's like the every
If they're
sports
not
team
getting
in
the title,
Boston.
it's like
And as soon as they start sucking, everybody just rips them to shreds. So that's all I'm doing is I'm following suit. And it's fun. Like the Bills fans, I know they hate the Patriots so much. I think Easton just farted, by the
Nope.
way.
what are you talking about, dude?
A little on-air rip. But the Bills hate the Patriots, and I just thought it would be fun to just kind of root for the Bills for a little bit,
Whatever works for you, man. I figured you'd be a Buccaneers fan.
Yeah, that's what I realized. I'm just a fantasy football fan now that my team sucks.
Aren't you losing there too?
I think I'm 7-5, 8-5, something like that. Yeah, I'm like third in the division or third in
not
the
bad.
league.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Any rate,
Great sports break.
You guys and your sports, man.
Budz was so entertained he actually farted during that rant.
I actually fell asleep. Just kidding. That's pretty funny. I thought you guys told a good story there.
Okay.
I got a Patreon question here from George Kleckner. Dope dude.
Shout out.
Throw him a little something, something.
I don't know about you, but he's kept me gainfully employed over the years.
Dude, he even sponsored me back in the day.
Yeah.
With
Tell
N
people
boots.
he's started Union Bindings for the people listening that don't know.
Was a boot sponsor for me when he was doing N boots back in the day. So the question is for both Andy and Stonie Budz. Have you guys taken any sort of EMT training? I'm sure both of you dealt firsthand with more people getting wrecked just about any job that I can think of. Thanks, Tom Brokaw. Remember that old news guy, Tom Brokaw?
Oh, yeah. I think
Great
that's
reference.
That was a great era, Tom Brokaw.
Yeah. I always say that when people get broke off and
Yeah,
no
for
one knows
sure.
what I'm talking about.
Great question, George. And I have taken EMT training only once, and thankfully I've never had to use it. I definitely could use a brush up, and definitely seen some shit go down, as you would imagine. Nothing to the scale of the avalanche story that's come through this a few times, but been lucky in that regard, and we've been lucky that we've been in places where there's been cell phone access and help to have come along the way, but can never take too much EMT training, and hopefully you'll never have to use it.
I personally never had any, unfortunately.
I'll tell you
I
what.
should, though, man, because it sucks. The concussions you see are so scary.
Yeah.
I saw a broken femur in the backcountry, and
Dude, I would just hate to be out there and someone hit their head and I didn't know how to give them mouth to mouth and save their life, something simple. And so it was basic. It was 2-3 hour class I took here. It's not like the wilderness training. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah.
That one's gnarly.
Yep.
That one's heavy. Have you done any of that?
I have a class coming up with Pat Moore, one of his. It's risk assessment, not wilderness, but Sage has done the wilderness one.
Yeah, wilderness is heavy.
yes, Sage and Griff were talking about it. Made me want to do it. So
It's good to have those guys in the crew, though.
One thing I'd like to add to this conversation, because it's fresh on my mind, is there's like some preventative measures if you haven't taken the course. Let's say you're going in the backcountry. I actually just built my pack last night, or was it a couple nights ago? Basically, you can everybody should roll with some type of first aid kit in their pack, be it street trip, be it going to I mean, you don't really need it that much when you're at the resort, but if you're going out of bounds, you're going in the backcountry, you're going split boarding. And in mine, the things that are important, they make basic ones, but I take a basic first aid kit and then I added a bunch of other things. So for me, a lot of times we're doing snowmobiling or I'm doing it riding dirt bikes. So I bring a lot of things like I take my basic first aid kit and then I'll bring zip ties and then I'll bring a bunch of baling wire and I wrap that with electrical cord. And then a simple fire starter for people that don't know is like you can take cotton balls and cover that in like petroleum jelly or whatever. And that burns really well. And you can use it if you have dried lips. You can put that in like a little plastic bag or whatever. And then you can kind of make your own first aid kit and nerd out on it. Get some volley straps, like things that you can use for splints. You're going to want some paracord in there. And really important, you're definitely going to want a lighter in case you're out there, shit hits the fan, and you need to build a fire. So just like it's all preventative stuff. I also keep a spot beacon in my bag, which is a GPS texting device. So let's say I get lost out in the backcountry. I got no cell phone service. You can do a SOS where you can do straight to search and rescue, or you can communicate via text to people you have loaded in there. But yeah, there's maybe I'll do a little link to some of this stuff in the show notes, but there's definitely some preventative measures. Like you said earlier, what was that preparation quote?
Luck favors the prepared.
Yeah. So, a lot of times the reason you're out there is because you're lost. So you can do things like preloading the GPS on your maps. That's what I do a lot of times when I ride my dirt bike is I preload my maps with a map system called Avenza, where you know where you're at. I mark the truck. Okay, I'm lost. I know how to get back to the truck. Things like that. So I don't know. I think that's an important thing to talk about is making sure you have a solid first aid kit if you're going in the backcountry.
Safety Chief Chris, I like that, dude. Yeah. I'm going out with you, dude.
One thing to add, pro tip is starting a fire, old bike tires. Cut them up. Those things burn really well.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, one of our guides up in Revy one year, we were waiting out a storm. He had those, and they just great for starting fire.
Dude, I tell you what, I've heard a story from Hostenek. One day they were out heliing, and weather moved in fast, and these guys got stuck overnight.
In the books, in Valdez.
Yeah, they were not prepared. And Justin talks about how he was basically hallucinating from the cold and just very scary moment, thought they were going to die. You've obviously heard this story.
I have, and maybe it'd be great. Justin should be on the show to tell it sometime. But he said they all kind of huddled up together, and they would take turns on who would be on the ends, so they would rotate. And he said he just sat there all night, and he dreamt about slipping his feet inside of two vaginas.
Yes, that is the story. He was like going so cold that he was basically like losing it.
It was the mental game you had to stay on top of. And he said, he just sat and thought about that. And then in the morning, the heli showed up and picked him up.
But there was moments they thought
that might have got him
it
through.
Was it?
Yeah.
So it did get him through. That's how to say.
I have
the story.
A thing that I add into my packs. I don't know if this is true. Somebody should fact check this. But a friend of mine, Luke, he owns a construction company and he has a bunch of employees, and like some of them are from Mexico, and so their little trick of the trade that those guys use is they get cayenne pepper pills, and supposedly those warm you up. Now, I bought a bunch of cayenne pepper pills, and I keep them in my first aid pack.
Is that true?
I don't know. Somebody should fact check it.
We'll
I've actually
fact check
never
it. I'll
used
fact
them
check
and
it.
tested them, but I think that's what I have, like maybe 10 cayenne pepper pills in my first aid pack.
Dude,
So-
I've heard you can sprinkle that in your boots too, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you can absorb it for heat as well.
True.
Heard it.
I mean, think
Just
about
haven't
when
tried
you
it.
eat it. Think
I mean,
about
the
what
fact
happens.
You guys both, it makes you sweat, huh?
Yeah,
The fact you guys both have heard this, I mean, geez, I'll Google it and we'll put it in the show notes if it's true.
Could be.
Hopefully that never happens to us or anyone. I mean, I couldn't imagine getting stuck out there with wet gear overnight.
Yeah, absolutely.
The gear's come a long way since when Justin got stuck, but
True, but still.
Still.
I mean, that's deep in AK.
especially when you're after a really long day and you're going to be wet somewhere.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine the thought of being stuck out there overnight.
And it's a thought when you're in AK for sure, because you go out, like you've been out in Haines, and dude, the weather can come in. You could be there for days.
Yeah.
And that was like that's always kind of on my mind when
Me
I'm
too.
out there in Haines. I'm just like, you're always trying to push it because you're like, okay, there's some pockets. Let's
Yeah.
go. We got to do this. But you're like, pilots can't land and come get you if you get stuck out on the glacier. I mean, the heli company could probably send in a sled crew to come get you, but if it's really bad or if it's almost getting dark, you might be on your own. So that's one other element that's always in the back of your head when you're in AK. And it's like, yeah, you want to bring some survival gear stuff, but our packs are already so weighed down.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like there's a point of having a heavy pack where it kind of like hinders your production. You're holding the crew behind because you're carrying too much weight. So you kind of have to make some decisions like, dude, I don't bring much water out to even shave weight. I don't know about you.
Yeah, a guide actually once told me that by overloading yourself, you're like making yourself so much more tired, and it's actually like so bad for you that you shouldn't do that. You know, he like gave me a big speech about it.
Yeah, and that's like, especially for us, you know.
Every movement you overexert, basically.
Those bags are heavy as
Yeah.
shit, your guys' bags.
Especially the filmers, even with the tripods. And
yeah, absolutely. So you always have to consider every single thing that's in that
yeah,
bag.
you have less water, especially if you're in Alaska somewhere like that.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a Sage post that I thought was pretty cool. He was breaking down the things. He's actually what inspired me to build this.
Have you always had that, or you built that this year?
I've always had a little moto emergency pack, but I nerded out on. I was listening to a podcast with the wilderness survival guy, and he basically talked about his little bag that he brings everywhere, and that inspired me to take this first aid kit and make a more expensive bag. But if you're with a crew of a bunch of people and you're spending a lot of time together, let's say you're on a trip, and you can disperse the weight throughout the crew, so you have one first aid kit. Let's say one guy's got the splint. Some guys got, whatever things
smart.
that you need, but that's one way to do it if you're with a crew for a while.
Very smart.
Good pro tip.
Never done it, though. Pro tip. All right, Andy, do you have, I feel like we did it, man. I think we had a great convo. Do you have anybody you want to just throw some thank yous out to some people along the way?
Glad you asked.
Glasses are coming on.
There's definitely a list of people I need to thank because obviously couldn't have done this without the help of so many along the way. And first and foremost on the list of thanks, you guys for having me here and creating such a great product and a
Stoked to
forum,
have you.
a hub of snowboarding in a time where really kind of need a hub where things are kind of changing and in flux. And it's great you're here and it's great it's in good hands. But definitely want to thank every single rider that did a trick for me over the years because without you guys, what am I, just a guy taking selfies of myself at best. And putting it on the line and having trust for that I would get your shot and I would get it right, make it look good, not make you look like a kook. So definitely to the riders, but top of the list of riders over the year for sure, Mikey Leblanc has helped me tremendously through my career, opened some doors, kind of really helped me go on to the next level. When MDP did the Shakedown movie, he brought me in. They were like, he's like, you're going to shoot with us this year. And that was a huge turning point in my career to have access to that crew at that time, where before I was just kind of taking bits and pieces. Mikey's a good friend to this day, actually. And, but that was a huge help. Blaze Rosenthal, he brought me in at M3. He kind of had to sign off on the things. He was the big boss there. Good friend of mine for many years. But biggest of all, Bobby Meeks, huge shout out. That guy has kept me gainfully employed. See him all the time. He just moved back to Portland, Oregon, and it's so nice to have him there. He just got a puppy. I just got a puppy a few months before him. Our dogs are growing up together, so it's good times. But huge shout to Bobby Meeks.
Give him an air horn.
Then I want to like also, if I still have a minute here.
Yeah, you got plenty of time.
whatever.
Hey, you know, I gotta like I'm gonna thank all the filmers over the years that I've worked with, because you know what, I fought this idea for so long that, you know, like, oh, filmer versus photographer, why can't, you know, like, you're in my shot, this kind of thing. But man, you guys are driving the bus. I'll admit it.
I'll admit that too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say to people coming up, it's like latch onto a filmer, man.
Yeah, and make good friends with us. And there's some, you know, some challenging moments out there. We both want to get the shot, but some of my best friends have turned out to be filmers, and those guys work a lot harder than we do. They're all concerned with that. What's that L word? Landing? Keep talking about landings, man.
Yeah, why are they so worried about the landing?
Yeah, so no wonder they're all crazy nuts. But yeah, filmers over the year for sure. Whitey, like I mentioned before, helped me so much getting into his projects. Mac Dog, he was a homie. Loved hanging out with him for years. Brad Kramer, both from Whitey and later Mac Dog Productions. Shane Charlebois and Justin Hostenick, homies for life. Justin Meyer and the rest of the VG crew, Riley Erickson, Sam Fenton, and I'll even give a shout out, never thought I'd do this, to Bubble Boy himself, Sean McCormick. Joe Carlino, it was amazing to work with you. You're super good at what you do. Never Not, one of the best movies I think has ever been made. The Pierres, Wickberg and Minhondo, do insane work. Two of the best to ever do it. Justin Neals, also from the same crew of people. Justin Hare, spent some really good times with you. Flo from Pirates. Kaz Duffy in the Ride years, always a good time. Cole Taylor, can't do this list without Cole. Pat Fenelon, I was a little iffy on this, but you made the cut.
Love
and
it.
Last but not least is Sam Sosnowski, who's been the DC filmer for the last few years, and that guy's salt of the earth,
dope.
as good as they get. And then I gotta thank the guys at the mags over the years. I worked for Transworld for about 17 years. I got my first photo editor, and for a long time was Nick Hamilton. He really pushed me to be a better photographer. It was humbling to work under you and see what you could produce, and thanks for the push. Chris Wellhausen, same deal. And thanks to Pat Bridges for bringing me on at Snowboarder when Transworld went out. I only lasted there one season. Sorry if I was the bad luck that kind of sunk the ship.
I don't think it was you, dog.
I've sunk 3 ships in my career. I did a little work. I did a little work for Blunt. Sunk that one. Sunk Transworld, and now
Maybe it is you.
and now Snowboarder. So sorry, man. So and then also every photographer, past and present. Thanks for the inspiration, man. You've definitely, the work you do motivates me. So many guys out there doing great work, and I love scrolling the feed and seeing what you're doing and seeing the shots in print. So thanks for the inspo. And then most of all, got to thank the wife. Sorry. Cracking up there a little bit, but yeah, the wife has definitely stood through a lot of times.
A lot of traveling, I imagine.
Yeah. Empty houses. So thanks to her. Thanks, babe, for standing by.
Let's give her some air horns.
And I know you didn't always understand it, why I always had to leave, but I think you were supportive, and so thanks so much.
It's all about having a strong woman behind you, right?
Definitely.
I
do it
think
without 'em.
on behalf of all the photographers, dude, thank you, man. You definitely inspired me, brother. Your photos were always what pushed me to get out there
Well, thanks, man.
when I
Same.
first started.
Right back at you.
Well, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this podcast, man. You drop so much knowledge for all our listeners, for myself. And yeah, just thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we will see you guys next week. Over and out from the bomb hole.